Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. We are back. We've got the first ever NBA Tuesday night action with the first ever night with the double screen setup in the background. I cannot complain, people. I cannot complain. This is great. We've got games everywhere. Hawks versus Blazers on one screen, and I mean we've got Suns versus Bucks on the other screen. One was supposed to be the primetime game, one was not, but apparently the NBA you can't flex games, of course. So TNT, it's just what it is. They're stuck with Suns versus Bucks, and make no mistake, chat. The first quarter, it's not even a competition. Of course, I mean we could qualify it with the fact that Durant is out. He is timeline wise expected to miss about a week, chat, but we'll see what that turns into. But regardless, even if Durant was out there, shout out to the Phoenix Suns. This score might be similar anyways. So a team that already, of course, has some depth, some roster issues, losing a star player is definitely going to be. I mean, Colin Gillespie or Kevin Durant, chat. Which one? And again, do we have to replay the seasons? But I think everybody's still taking Kevin Durant, right? Over Colin Gillespie. 2 for 3, though. 1 for 2 in a first quarter. Durant can't do that. Booker, 3 for 8. Okay, chat. Giannis attacking, getting to the rim, pause. Couple of free throws in the mix as well, too, to start it off. So, like we said, we've gravitated over toward Blazers Hawks as the main game. A couple of fun teams to keep an eye. Oh, wait, what happened? Do we know? Oh, there we go. There it is. Locked in, chat. Star players are playing, except for Jalen Johnson, RIP. You forget that the Hawks have lost Jalen Johnson, chat, for the season, but they're still in that playoff, play-in mix. I forget exactly what their seeding is right now. Why doesn't it say, chat? What's going on? Oh, well. But they're still in the 7 to 10 range. If I remember. Yeah, they're number 7 right now. And then Milwaukee to 6 at 40 wins is crazy, chat. It is crazy. So, you got Atlanta still in the playoff picture without, arguably, again, with Trae Young, of course, the driving force of their offense. But in terms, we could do the trade value stuff and all that. But even just best player right away. I mean, you look at what the Jalen Johnson numbers were for this season. Is it fair to say he's a 20? Okay, he's 19, basically 19 points a game. I was going to say, is it fair to call him a 20 and 10 guy at this point for the season? Torn labrum in the shoulder, chat. RIP. You hate to see it. But 50% from the field this year, 31% from 3, of course. Still room to improve there as well, too. 35% last year. There's even, you start putting, again, all the pieces together. The upside is really crazy. But what was he doing, here, pause, the last stretch of games before he got hurt? Atlanta was winning a little bit, chat. I know there's some Trae Young missing some games in here as well, too. But I think he had kind of ascended here. You got a 14-game stretch. Do we just go 15? I know we're going to throw in a couple losses. We'll go 16. 11 and 5 in a 16-game span, 54% from the field, 32.8% from 3, and he was 20, 10, and 5, chat. It's a special player. We could go to the stat head and filter out the 20, 10, and 5 players. The 5 assist number, I feel like you might have to up that to 6 or 7 now with what that used to be. Of course, the LeBron, Luka sort of baseline for stats of 28, 8, and 8. Or, 28 and 8 if you're in a Sabonis. Sabonis, of course, is more like 20, 12 and 8. But for the more all-inclusive version of the stat. But, Jalen Johnson, of course, like we're saying, borderline best player, depending on how you want to look at the conversation. And they trade DeAndre Hunter as well, too, chat. And Clint Capella, I mean, whatever, did they trade him? Is he out for the season? Have we heard from Clint Capella recently? But they do have the guy from Washington's diagnosed ligament injury. The fourth metacarpal of the left hand will be reevaluated approximately 3 to 4 weeks, chat. Yikes. So that was about a week ago for Clint Capella, the 21st, 10 days ish. So he's looking at about, yeah, that would have been the second Friday ago, if that's the right way to put it at this point. So he's still got a couple of weeks before, they get Clint Capella back. But I like and I don't want to butcher his last name, Muhammad something chat, but I liked his upside definitely in the draft as well too. So, and with the Clint Capella being an expiring contract, of course you like a Kongwu as well too as a long-term option still to build around in that team. But you still need depth. You still need they still need the frontline depth, especially if I don't know what the Trae Young future is, of course, in this team. I mean, maybe the playoffs are a big part of it, chat. Again, he's sort of in a different role with a more his role as the best player on the team more accentuated than it is now, with them losing some of their better players. And Basketball Reference has kind of done a weird thing with some of their stats now, chat. I don't know, is it if a guy hits double-digit seasons, they start adding this participant stat into the thing? So it says Clint Capella, 11-time participant. He's played 11 seasons in the league. Basketball Reference, I don't understand. Is there like a post somewhere? Do we have to bring blogs back, chat? Or do we still have to keep posts? I guess it's, people are still posting on X, but is there like an X post about it that we can see? Because I was looking at Kevin Durant's stats earlier as well too. Because again, Phoenix was in the primetime game. So make no mistake, it was a surprisingly busy day, chat. I don't know if April Fool's, somebody pranked the restaurant, just told everybody to show up for lunch. But it was crazy busy. So we were not able to just go through the Kevin Durant Basketball Reference page maybe the way we would have been in the past couple of days with how slow it's been. So we, maybe should have gotten to that a little bit sooner, chat. But yeah, we were looking at this. It said 19-time participant. I thought it said 18 last time we looked at it. He's gaining participation trophies. He's not even playing games, chat. Shout out to Kevin Durant. He's just a legacy player. But I guess he's only played 7. But there's a couple of injury years in there as well too. So, yeah, chat. They just added a random participant year for KD. I don't understand. Because 18 would make 17. I'm guessing they're giving him 17 seasons and then the injury season, 17 seasons played. But do we go LeBron and check it out? Then do we have to look up MJ next to appease the MJ fans? Then Steph and then Kobe and then Allen Iverson? Who are all the fan bases that are going to get upset? Okay, LeBron does not have any participation trophies, chat. Oh, there we go. 23-time participant, yeah. So, I mean, that's crazy. 23 times LeBron James has participated in the league. They're given... What did they add? Another stat at like 6 o'clock? What happened, chat? Captain L'America? They gave him another nickname as well, too. Benjamin Buckets? Whoa, chat. The nickname find of the day. We got it early this time. I think last time we got a good nickname on the stream, the Slambassador, which I think might have been 2 streams ago at this point. That was a little bit later in the pod. Oh, Kevin Porter Jr. just throwing it out to nobody, chat. Yikes. But, yeah, Benjamin Buckets, that's not bad. That's not bad. That's definitely a B+ for the nickname. King James, Chosen One, Bron, the Little Emperor. That's kind of a pause. Akron Hammer is also kind of a pause as well, too. Kind of conflicting nicknames there. The Little Emperor and the Akron Hammer. Maybe that's more of a buddy cop movie. Maybe a different kind of buddy cop movie, chat. But L Train could be in that movie as well too. Benjamin Buckets and Captain L'America. Maybe Emperor and Akron Hammer are on the L Train, chat. We're too early to be talking about this, but honestly, Benjamin Buckets is that the best LeBron nickname? Because King James, I mean, it's cool, but King is one of those nicknames that. It is a nickname, and it is reserved for LeBron. Like, there's not a lot of other just athletes in general where it's like, I guess there's not a lot of like Louis that are athletes like King Louis, but it's still kind of a title already. Again, Benjamin Buckets, of course, is a Benjamin Buck, but it's a play on a character name, so it's not even the character name. King James is kind of already a name, but then again, it's a play on a thing. So like. Again, I don't know, not to bring the MJ LeBron thing back up this fast, chat, but Air Jordan versus King James as nicknames. Again, Jordan is in the name. I don't think that necessarily takes away, but I just like the creativity of Benjamin Buckets. And I think LeBron definitely has more nicknames. So more participations and nicknames. I don't know if that adds to the GOAT resume. Might have to. Doesn't get enough. Oh, LeBron. Oh, Jordan does have a couple nicknames. I didn't realize they stacked the page like this. 20-time participant in the league chat. Shout out. So they're just giving Jordan participation trophies for the years that he didn't even play. So there you go. David proves it right there that he was suspended. He didn't actually retire. Because if he retired, he wouldn't be participating. But then the second time, he got suspended twice. I don't know about that, Chad. But definitely that first time. Who knows? But shout out MJ anyways. But Mike, Air Jordan, MJ, his airness, money, Black Cat, Mr. June. I mean, you get it's kind of going for the Mr. October thing. But again, like, I don't know. Mr. October just has a better ring to it. And I'm a terrible baseball fan, Chad. That's how you know how iconic the nickname Mr. October is. That I just know the nickname and I'm like not exactly certain who the player is. Is it Reggie Jackson? Is Mr. October? I believe that's right, chat. Hopefully. Okay, it doesn't say on Baseball Reference. So if we search Mr. October, will it pop up? Oh, it is Reggie Jackson. Okay, chat. So Baseball Reference, get the nicknames on the pages. What are we doing here? 22. They added the participations though. 22-time participant. Reggie Jackson, of course, and 11-time participant in the playoffs as well too. So, shout out. But 5-time World Series? That's why they called it Mr. October, chat. I didn't realize it was 5 World Series wins. Where does Reggie Jackson rank for all-time baseball players? I mean, you know, what do we got? Jackie Robinson, Babe Ruth, Hank Aaron, then Reggie Jackson? Is that a good list, chat? I don't know baseball, guys. I feel like I'm just playing it safe. But Joe DiMaggio? Ted Williams has got to be up there, right? I feel like everybody's pretty in agreement that Ted Williams had a good career. But who's the... Oh, Lou Gehrig, of course. Shout out Lou Gehrig. But these are more like baseball's Jedis. I don't know if they're necessarily the, perfect correlation for the all-time list. But they don't have... What's like a PER ranking for baseball, chat? Do they have... I mean, they have to have one stat, but that combines the offense and the defense. Baseball people, get in the chat. What is the win probability added? Situation win probability added? Oh, that's interesting, chat. I don't know what that means, but situation sounds important. Situation wins added? Is that like wins per 48 kind of? Who knows? Career, he's 34th in that. And win probability added, he's 49th all time. Let's see if this sounds like an accurate stat, chat. Okay, Barry Bonds, yeah, he was good. Babe Ruth, Ted Williams, Willie Mays, Hank Aaron, Mickey Mantle. Okay, this stat seems like it might correlate to something. I mean, Barry Bonds, of course. I don't know what his Baseball Hall of Fame status is. He's not in, right? Does he get participation trophies? He still gets his participation trophies. 22-time participation. Shout out. WAR? Is that the wins above replacement? Maybe that's a better basic stat to look at, seeing as how that seems like it's the number one stat in the basic stats column. But either way, Jimmy Fox? I thought that's a Jamie Foxx for a second. I was like, Jamie Foxx played baseball too? I wouldn't put it past him, chat. The man was somehow the only guy to win an Oscar and hit a home run in the World Series. We're giving Dion credit, but did he play a blind guy and play baseball? Did Jamie Foxx play baseball as Ray Charles? Chat? That would have been majorly impressive. But Pujols at 16? Is Pujols almost a top 15? Is Pujols on the third team all MLB from all time, chat? I mean, shout out. I know the name Albert Pujols, of course. He's an iconic player, especially here in the Midwest. A name. I don't know necessarily was he on the Cardinals? Was there a Cardinals run with him? Maybe he still is. Is he must-watch TV on the Cardinals right now? Uh, back in St. Louis. So had a Dodgers run. Anaheim, was in Anaheim for a long time. So yeah, he was in St. Louis way back, chat, when we were a kid. So that's why it's just, in the pause, but in the brain, that he was just had that run. People were always mentioning him. Ricky Henderson, Chipper Jones, iconic. All these people better than Reggie Jackson, David Ortiz. Chat, give us a good gauge. Where is Reggie Jackson? I mean, Pete Rose. You see, maybe you start doing like a two-way thing. I don't know. So he was winning some slugger awards, so I don't know what the defense was for Reggie Jackson. But, I mean, how bad are you actually at defense if you're a bad defender? People are going to be like, I don't know. Just look at who's the guy, chat. Is it Ernest Biner? There's the guy that fumbled and the guy that fumbled the baseball. The guy that fumbled the football for the Browns and the guy that fumbled the baseball for the Red Sox. You just don't want to be named Ernest, I guess, if you're an athlete in the 90s, both 90s, 80s and 90s, 70s and 90s. But is Albert Pujols 40 spots above Reggie Jackson? I don't know. Shout out, chat. Tris Speaker, Ty Cobb, can he be on the list? Can we trade Pete Rose for Ty Cobb in the Hall of Fame? Is that, are baseball fans, can that be a conversation that gets had? I mean, it would be tough now, of course, to, and not, you gotta honor Pete Rose. You just gotta honor Pete Rose. Get the man's status cemented in Baseball Hall of Fame. But to make the call now, RIP would be a bummer. It's like, why can't we just get the guy? Do we have to punish the guy in his lifetime where he can't see himself make the Baseball Hall of Fame? But then again, of course, he knows his status as a Baseball Hall of Famer. Frank Thomas, not necessarily a name, of course, that people talked about in the Midwest a lot as a baseball player, but has had a great run of testosterone commercials. Chad, there's just a new generation of people that know about Frank Thomas. If you're watching sports on Sunday, and I guess we'd have to go like maybe not, Chad, because the Red Zone as well too. Am I breaking news? If you guys aren't watching, but maybe some of the Sunday night stuff still, some of the individual primetime games where it still goes to streaming, but you still get the ads of course, cut into it the same way. But I guess now that I think about it, have I seen a Frank Thomas testosterone ad, chat, a testosterone booster ad on some of these streaming services? Of course, I think it was targeted to maybe a little bit of a different demographic. And shout out to Phoenix, chat. They're down by one. Down by one with 449, rounding down a little bit. But just under 5 minutes left to go here in the second quarter, first half, and they will be inbounding the ball. What do we get? A little flagrant technical situation? I've just been staring at this Hawks-Blazers game, of course, but and the Frank Thomas baseball reference listing here. But yeah, Chad, if you guys know what I'm talking about, shout out. I don't even know the brand. It's just we'd have to, if down the road, it's like what products do we need to start looking for, chat? We don't even know the brands. Just Frank Thomas testosterone. That's kind of a crazy search, but who knows what life throws at you down the road. 37-37 in the Hawks-Blazers game as well, too. So there we go, chat. We've locked in. We've got a couple of competitive basketball games now to keep us entertained. But yeah, Mr. October. Anyways, why were we on Mr. October? Because Michael Jordan's Mr. June. So makes sense. I mean, if anybody, was winning a title as much as, and I don't know, was Bill Russell playing the finals in June? Who knows, chat? We'd have to actually go back and look at the schedule for that time as well, too. GOAT, Superman, Captain Marvel. See, Captain Marvel is not even really a nickname for Michael Jordan. It is, but what are we doing there? Black Jesus, shout out. Magic Mike. See, Magic Mike's not bad. Maybe we just lean toward the movie title. The movie title nicknames. And don't cancel me for not liking the Captain Marvel, man. But Superman is a Michael Jordan nickname. You never hear him referred to as, to be honest, and again, this is not a Dwight Howard versus Michael Jordan comment, chat, but you hear Dwight Howard referred to as Superman more than you hear Michael Jordan referred to. Again, his nicknames are MJ and Black Jesus, chat. You don't hear him refer. So is Black Jesus elevated above Superman? I don't know what the Black Jesus. I guess it would have to be DC Comics instead of Marvel. Michael Jordan, the only player to have a nickname from both a DC and a Marvel comic, I guess. Maybe Black Jesus is its own separate comic run from, you know, who knows what other universes are out there. I'm not as in tune with the comic things to know a third comic universe, chat. What universe is the Samuel L. Jackson Glass movies? Are those comics, books? Those got to be something. Those weren't just like, oh, but that's what M. Night Shyamalan. But is he always writing books? Is he an author or does he adapt? I don't know, chat. I'm not a film buff like that. But I guess, speaking of film buff, Magic Mike, yikes. Decent nickname for Michael Jordan. But it wouldn't have been around either when he played. I don't know if there's an older Magic Mike. I guess Magic Mike, it has to be a remake, right? If they made it now. I guess they didn't make it now. They did make it in the that's like a 20-teens franchise. Maybe there's one 2020s release in there, but hey, yo, pause. Maybe, I mean, iconic movies, chat, there's still probably releases in 2025 to Magic Mike, if we're being honest. But in terms of the movie being released in theaters, you know, those movies weren't being made when Michael Jordan was actually playing. So that nickname wouldn't have, you know, Marv Albert wasn't in the broadcast in the final. Maybe he definitely maybe did say Magic Mike at some point, but, you know, wasn't referring to the Channing Tatum vehicle if he said it. So if Mike Breen or, you can't even say Jeff Van Gundy, Mark Jackson, more chat. If Mike Breen or Richard Jefferson, shout out Doris Burke, but, and shout out Richard Jefferson as well, too. He does a great job on the broadcast. It's not that, but you know, it's just nostalgia, chat. That's all it is. We're just old curmudgeons, and we just wish that things never changed. And I don't know, did Van Gundy even offer to take a pay cut? But now he's coaching the Clippers, and the Clippers might be a feisty team in the playoffs. So, and Van Gundy might be a major. I mean, Van Gundy, chat. I don't know if we need to actually. I mean, maybe we actually do have to talk about that as a storyline in the playoffs, because just in general for teams, that concept gets. And maybe as it should as well, too, with just the way teams are built. But that concept is much more applied to football as a thing you look at when you're breaking down a matchup in a playoff series or just any game. But, you know, especially, of course, the importance of, I guess, analyzing, but the importance of making sure you get your bets right, chat, for these playoff games, I guess. But, you always, of course, are looking at the coaching staff and looking at saying, hey, maybe the head coach and the offensive coordinator is great, but the defense, of course, has been slacking. The head coach is offensive minded, so it's relies on the defensive coordinator, and he's not necessarily doing it. Like, there's just different scenarios, of course, where the coaching staff goes into play, but it just really usually gets placed on the one head guy in the NBA. So, you know, when he does a great job, of course, we're all sitting around just in a circle. It's just Spolstra chat and Ty Lue and Greg Popovich and just all the guys that are at the top of the list for best coach in the league. Like, of course, they get brought up in prominence, and the assistants, when the head coaching cycles kick up, like, I mean, their names get brought up, and it's not like the psycho NBA fans that would know us. It's not like the ones that would know assistants don't know the names of the prominent ones. Like, they do get brought up, chat, in conversation, but again, in that analytical sense of looking at a matchups. Like, Van Gundy's a real piece, and the defense as well too, if we're making a defensive coordinator come, like, looking at the Chiefs. I mean I feel like we've probably been the number one Spagnola pod out there, chat. There's really, I mean, you got to check the tapes. There's really no way, and it maybe just the fact that our pod is 4 hours long sometimes, but there's really no way that nobody's given Spagnola. There's no way that nobody's given Spagnola more airtime than the REMINGTOM pod. I mean, I feel like we've really sung his praises, and it's been well deserved. That defense and what they've meant to the run of the Kansas City Chiefs has been insanely important, and at times been the better unit, especially in the regular season. I mean, of course, in the playoffs, it's always relied on Mahomes, and the defense has made big plays in playoff games and playoff moments for them to win games. But, I mean, the regular season as well, too, the importance of them being one seeds a lot of the time. And again, I know they didn't win the Super Bowl this year. I know the expectation for them is literally that last final goal versus maybe some teams can get a little bit more, talk themselves into it with some of the other levels of success. But for them to still continue to dominate the AFC this year the way they did, for them to even make it back to the game. I mean, of course, they're still they're operating at the highest level of any of these football teams in the league. But again, that importance of that defense to maintain that 1 seed and maintain that conference dominance has been really crazy, Chet. And Van Gundy, as a assistant coach on the Clippers, is that kind of advantage that you get in the NFL with that kind of coordinator who could be a head coach. And Van Gundy, it's like, yeah, absolutely, he could be. I mean, you have a second head coach on your team. It's really the simplest way to put it, Chet. They have 2 head coaches. How are you not, from a game planning and preparedness standpoint, especially with the talent that they can have on the roster, the high-end talent that they can have on the roster, like, how are you not going to be better off there? And I mean, you just go through NBA history, Chat. Look at the teams that are the best teams. It's all, of course, from top to bottom, they're stacked. And you go back and look at the coaching staffs, and I mean, the coaching trees. And I know sometimes, is the coaching candidate always going to be the next best head coach in the league, or the next even really good head coach in the league where he's going to be around for a long time and coach a lot? But watching this Suns Bucks game, like, Coach Bud's a perfect example of that, and Coach Bud did win a finals as well too. And I almost was gonna say he was coaching the Bucks for a second, Chat, but we're getting flashbacks to the good old days with Giannis. But now, of course, for at least these last couple of games, still somehow coaching in Phoenix with them not making a change in the season. Check us, make no mistake, there will be changes in the offseason. It's just what it is. But I mean, Coach Bud, again, it's not maybe going to go into like the Hall of Fame as a coach, but still a guy that's going to coach a lot of jobs. Still was able to, again, win a finals, even if Giannis gave you one of the better final performances and playoff runs that we've seen. And if you have him as an assistant on your team, you're probably going to be really good off. That's still a really good basketball mind to have in your assistant. And of course, he's a Coach Pop coaching tree guy. And guess what? When Budenholzer was an assistant on the Spurs, they were a really successful team. I don't think he was there in the early aughts, like when they were winning the title. Was Mike Budenholzer there when they were getting upset in the playoffs every year, Chat? Maybe we need to go back and give Mike Budenholzer some blame for some of those early playoff exits. There's a couple of times. I know they won the finals in 2007. Oh, he was there for a long time. Okay, Chat. We need to give him his respect. Long tenured member of the San Antonio Spurs. But yeah, I guess as he rose to prominence as an assistant those last couple of years, they got bounced in the playoffs early a couple times. Grizzlies, Mavs, it's just what it is. A OKC or match, and some of those matches again, like OKC. Did they lose in the conference finals or divisional round? I don't remember, but yeah, that young OKC team. What are you gonna do, Chad? Durant, Westbrook, and Harden playing at that level is gonna be tough for anybody to take down. Literally, LeBron and Wade and Bosh, of course, have to be the ones to do it. But yeah, for Van Gundy, I mean, that's just a major advantage that the Clippers have. And if we're looking at like who even has the second best, I mean, if we're doing second assistant rankings, I don't think there's really any question that Van Gundy is number 1. But for who is number 2 on that list, Chat, like, is Van Gundy might be a better second assistant than the best head coach is from the second best head coach. Because I think we could have debates, of course, right now about who the best head coach in the league is. And a lot of it even depends on the varying success of the teams. Like, can Spoelstra currently be in the argument? I know, of course, he can, but can we still actually have him number 1 on the list? Like, the Heat are down a little bit on the rankings. Like, can Kenny Atkinson actually be the best coach in the league? It's his first season on the job, and the Cavs are... Mazzulla, again, has he coached as many seasons to still be in that list? And it's still this one group where we've seen multiple head coaches be successful, and of course he was able to push them over the top. It's very important. I mean, Steve Kerr doing the same thing in Golden State. He's also going to be in the mix for this conversation as well. But again, Popovich is honorarily still in the mix, having not officially retired yet. But again, his future is, we'll just have to see what ends up happening there. But you could have a conversation anyways about who that spot is. I don't know if we're just leaving a super obvious name out, Chad, of like a up and coming star. But again, in terms of the established guys that have been around anyways, I don't think there's anybody that you would trust more to take over a team as a head coach at this point than Van Gundy. And of course, he's flirted with that head coaching job for a long time. I think it's tough, chat, because to be honest, is Van Gundy, and this is, more so like, I don't know really what it is, chat, but obviously the man loves the actual participation in basketball on the sideline more so than anything. And I think anybody that loves a sport like that, the actual physical participation in the sport of it is the best part. But chat. But again, for Van Gundy being on TV, and not that there aren't people on TV that can necessarily, again, maybe put up Van Gundy level numbers in a sense, but the impact of Van Gundy on TV, and maybe there really isn't still anybody that can put up Van Gundy level numbers in a broadcast at this point, but how good he was on TV for the NBA, and that compared to the landscape of the rest, and again, not to disrespect the rest, it's like very, very great awesome announcers all across the board, but just how great Van Gundy was at his job was just a couple of levels above the rest. And there are more, I mean, maybe this is crazy to say, chat, but are there more elite head coaches than there are elite play-by-play guys that way? And again, is Van Gundy, I think Van Gundy could be a really, really good head coach in the league. And again, Mike Budenholzer's winning titles. Like, could Van Gundy be a better head coach right now than Mike Budenholzer, or equal level, Frank Vogel? And again, he's winning titles with Kawhi, or with Giannis. You've got Nick Nurse, I guess, won the title with Kawhi, if we're going to bring him up, and he's still coaching in the league, I guess, as well. We mentioned Vogel, he's having to win the title with LeBron. So it's like, could Van Gundy win a title with LeBron and Davis? Okay, or LeBron and Luka now currently. And maybe would he do a better job than Redick? Who knows, Chad? Probably not. Redick's doing an amazing job in LA. But maybe it's a conversation to have. But, could he win a title with those awesome players? Of course. But that's still a certain level of coach that you have to be, or have to tap into for a season or whatever. And Van Gundy's been in the finals in the past and all this stuff. Like, I think we all think that Van Gundy is still a really good head coach. I mean, just still look in the booth, chat. Like, I still think Mark Jackson's a really good head coach. If, you want to start getting into the conversations about where he ranks again at the top of the list and that final put your team over the top stuff. But, what JB Bickerstaff is doing right now in Detroit, and what he did in Cleveland before, where you're going to bring him into an organization, he's going to provide stability. Like, you're telling me, and I know people are going to be like, Mark Jackson, but I'm telling you, Mark Jackson, you could put him into any of these struggling teams right now that might need a different look at head coach, and he's going to provide stability to the organization. You're going to win 45, 55 games in that range, a couple of playoff series. Like, Mark Jackson's going to give you a very successful run as a team. And again, like watching this Hawks-Blazers game, are the Blazers necessarily going to be wanting to move on from Chauncey Billups? He seems to be doing a really good job in Portland. You'd want to give him a chance with a more talented roster. Quinn Snyder as well, too. At least, let's see. But Quinn Snyder to Mark Jackson, I don't think is a crazy drop-off, or, again, upgrade, however you want to look at it. I think it's all in that same level. So, again, it depends on opportunity, perception, entry point pause, like the dollar amount valued, all that stuff. And I know maybe the perception for certain head coaching candidates is not the same that I might hold, chat. But again, to bring it back to Van Gundy, obviously, again, he's impactful, of course, as a head coaching candidate, and that's awesome. But I've even gone back recently and been like I've been watching a lot of, like, I mean, as everybody has, chat. I think it's always constantly in the rotation, of course, but a lot of like the old TNT best of moments. And maybe it's just it not being around as prominently in the same way. Of course, the show still exists, and there's still iconic, funny things that are happening on the show, but the night to night of it is, of course, just not the same that it was at the peak of its powers. But in that vibe of going back and rewatching those things, I got back into rewatching like some, and there's not a ton of like, the compilations are definitely a lot shorter for the Van Gundy, Mark Jackson, Mike Breen trio in the booth. But I think that's just a byproduct of what it was, a TV show versus them calling all of these games, and I mean, you really have to be locked in the moment to be like, this is the best of Mike Breen and Jeff Van Gundy. Like, that's definitely an intern over at ESPN having to go through, comb all of the games and try to figure out what's going on from a play call standpoint. What are the best of moments? I mean, of course, I think there's some Van Gundy iconic things that he brought up on the broadcast that those clips are living on in infamy. But again, just like the hour-long compilation. If there's some hour-long compilation of that trio, just the best of moments, chat, please drop it in the DMs at REMINGTOM Pod, because it will be on the TV in the background the moment you guys drop it in the DMs. Fire that bad boy up quick. But yeah, either way, you know, he'd be awesome in the booth now, is awesome as a impact coaching candidate in LA as well too. So we've got halftime for Portland, halftime for Milwaukee and Phoenix, and like we said, 2 close games as well too. And we've managed to prioritize some of these games over San Antonio versus Orlando, chat. It's just what it is. Shout out to Steph Castle and the Spurs. He's still been playing well, still maintaining his spot atop the rookie ladder right now on NBA.com, chat. It's impressive. Reece Shea has been closing ground. He's up to number 2. But yeah, this game, the Blazers just felt like the entertainment value of this game felt a little bit better. And sometimes watching the Spurs, you know, right now is a little depressing, chat. No Wembanyama, no De'Aaron Fox. It's like, oh, what this team could have been. But let's take a quick break while these teams are in halftime, and we will be back in 1 second. Okay, chat, we're back, and it's time to get into it. I think, of course, we've all heard the news at this point, but it's that time in the season, chat, that these NBA teams, it's not just celebrities that are looking at their relationships right now. These NBA teams, it's that time of the year. We kind of know where everybody is trending. Again, there is a handful of games left, so it may not, like, all the playoff spots may not be necessarily set in stone. We got the 11 seeds, maybe in the Eastern Conference, a little bit more set in stone than in theory in the Western Conference. But again, we still know the general directions to which the teams are trending. So, in honor of, some big Hollywood news, chat, this weekend, Sydney Sweeney called off the wedding. I don't really know much else than that, but the headlines were enough for me, chat. That made my day, and we were good to just keep it moving. But again, the NBA teams, I think it's good to do the same as well, too. Is there any NBA teams that need to call off certain relationships, need to call off certain things as well? And I think it's important to just take a scan of the league, chat, and just take a quick check-in on the teams and see if, again, there's relationships that need to be evaluated at this point, headed into the offseason for some of these teams, chat. And I guess there are some teams that have already been, speaking of calling things off, the Grizzlies, they've already called off their coach, chat. Taylor Jenkins, he got fired. We didn't really talk about it when it happened. Is this just a Memphis, Tennessee thing where they have a good head coach, and just because they're not quite winning as many games as they would like, they have to fire their coach? Because the Titans had Vrabel. They let Vrabel walk. Now Vrabel's in the Pats, and everybody's got stock in what the Pats are going to do with Drake. I mean, is Drake May a better quarterback than Vrabel had in Tennessee? I mean, that's for sure, chat. But Taylor Jenkins has Ja. So is Ja Drake May equivalent? I mean, make no mistake, chat. There was one point where we definitely did have that stock for sure in his upside. Of course, the questions about his health and durability have definitely risen over the last couple of years. I mean, it's definitely fair. If you go through his seasons, chat, just look at the games played to go, what can we rely on for Ja as a player? And the numbers this year have not been the same as well. So you see the percentages, chat, and the percentages are not always the main thing you look at with Morant. Again, he can lock in some of these bigger performances and have efficient games attacking the rim and finding his spot, like finding the thing that he does really well in the game and kind of sticking to that and managing to be efficient in that role. But still less than 45% from the field this year and less than 30% from three is honestly pretty crazy. It had been trending up, though, the last couple of years, if I remember correctly, which I think is important to remember as well. Maybe the last 2 years it got derailed, and really the last 3 as well, too. And it was trending up a while ago, chat. And up and down a little bit for Ja. It depends on when you count the start point for trending upwards, chat. There was a 2-season uptrend from 2021 to 22. But outside of that, I guess it's been pretty consistently in the 30% range. But again, it's like, to what level do you want to write Ja Morant off, and what level do you want to start rebuilding the team? The problem becomes with these guys, of course, is that if you think going forward Ja Morant isn't going to be a franchise guy, but somebody else thinks he does, then of course, you can get the franchise guy trade package for him versus maybe down the line the team-to-team value that he holds, would be decreased a little bit. But, and, I guess not to jump the gun and talk about Phoenix as well too, chat, but, they're going to have to make some calls in the offseason with Durant and Booker. But I don't know if Memphis is in needs to reevaluate their relationship with Ja standpoint quite yet. It does feel like next season is definitely the season where, is the next trade deadline going to be the trade deadline where Ja Morant's the hot name on the market and everybody's talking about where is Ja Morant going to, are we going to be adding Ja Morant very quickly, very high up? I mean, he might already be on the list, chat, for guys that we're keeping an eye on for, potential trade partners, Wembanyama down the road. Not trading Wembanyama, again, guys that we want to pair up with Wembanyama to complete this championship team that we could assemble. But again, John Morant would be in that conversation of a guy, and like, are you trading the franchise value package? And of course, with any of the Spurs trades, it's going to be what is going to be the offer ultimately on the table. I think Brian Wright knows, and he's proven himself, of course, in a trade math sort of standpoint, to always be on the right side of that aspect of it anyways. But he still seems like the type of guy that could be at least the first or second, he's going to be in the combo for the title team. And maybe it becomes specific, you start getting into like the types of players that you like. Trae Young is that type of star where, of course, we've seen the impact that he can have on the basketball court. He's taken a team to the conference championship game, but to the types of stars and the impact it has on the players around him, like, does it become specific on how you need to build the team versus some, again, in that same draft class, Luka. And Luka maybe has some team-specific things that you need to focus on with Luka, with the way that he plays the game as well, too. But again, just like in theory, he's that guy that can be a little bit more versatile with some of the lineup stuff that he can present. But just, again, from the basketball talent standpoint, he is still, in my mind, easily one of those top two, and not even just like a top two guy in general, because there's different versions of that as well. Because like Jamal Murray is a guy that is obviously a guy that has been a number two on a title team in the past. He has dealt with injuries here recently, and we'll see in the playoffs going forward how that's able to impact him, what level of play he's able to give the Denver Nuggets. But from a legacy standpoint, from what he's been, a guy that could accomplish that role of being that secondary scorer on a team, secondary playmaker, but is not really a guy that you would, and maybe you would, of course I'm probably not giving him enough credit, but not necessarily a guy you would consider building a franchise around or have conversations if he could maintain that team. Like, could he be a number one on a title team? It's like, no, that role as a sidekick is probably his role on, again, a good team. Could he go to a team, any team, and put up a lot of shots and score points? I mean, of course, we know he could be capable of putting up stats, but to actually be a guy that's generating wins. But then there's that LeBron Davis combination in LA over the last couple of years, and that Anthony Davis version of a number two, where it's like, okay, the health, the guys, obviously there's other things that go into it, but if things are right, that's obviously a combination that can get you a title. LeBron and Davis is good enough to be winning finals. But is Davis, and maybe Davis can be a number one on the title team, but it's just like we haven't quite seen it. He haven't quite proven it. Like, Ja to me is still in that Anthony Davis level of a number two trade type piece. And I know, team building type piece. And I know that in the past, I've definitely looked at it and been like, it might have been a smart move for the Lakers to trade Davis at some point. And ultimately them holding out, not even really holding out, but them, eventually moving on to Luka Doncic is clearly the right move. But again, even in a Davis trade, they were never really going to consider trading Davis for the package of picks and young players, or the package of even like, what if it's like 2 or 3 really decent star players and you get that depth, and now the team's maybe a little bit more rounded out, but again, you don't have that top end talent. Like, they were just always going to bank on the top end talent, and Ja to me is still in that top end talent. And for the Grizzlies, of course, that's a question. If you're operating again with, let's say, Anthony Davis, because maybe that name in this type of conversation, makes a lot more sense. His name's been in this conversation a lot longer, Chad. So maybe it's a little bit easier to picture. But, if it's like, could they build around Anthony Davis in that same way? I get the questions about that if we're actually talking winning the finals. But then if we're actually talking, do we trade Anthony Davis? Do we move on from Anthony Davis? Now it's like, what are we doing? And again, you can get a guy like me on the couch cooking up stuff on the trade machine. Let's be honest, a lot of that, of course, is the fun of just cooking up on the trade machine and just thinking about deals. It's like, this is actually like this is a thinker. Like, this might be something that is fun to just the math of it. And that's, most of the deals that we brought to Sam that were close like that, that's what he's like, yeah, on paper, this in 2K, this makes sense. But would the Lakers actually ever do this from the basketball politics standpoint of it? Not. But from, again, the idea of breaking up a tandem like Anthony Davis and LeBron. And now, do the Grizzlies have a LeBron necessarily? Jaren Jackson's been awesome and really proven himself without Ja for stretches this year as a guy who can level up his game even more so than we thought in the past as well. But he hasn't operated on, of course, the LeBron level, even LeBron Lakers level, with all due respect to Jaren Jackson. Like, LeBron Lakers level has still been a guy that's top 10, been top 10 in the league, of course, at points in his Lakers career, and has just always kind of flirting. And even still, like, top 10, top 15, just you need to win a game, you need to win a playoff series, you need a guy on your team, like, and you start even filtering it down even more, and then LeBron can even move higher up the list potentially in some standpoints. But again, he's kind of in that range where I feel like now, and especially with the precedent that the Davis and Luka trade set, that's of course, how many guys are you going to trade for Ja in that type of situation? But maybe right now that's the only type of move that I'd be willing to trade Ja for, would be that definite star player type upgrade. And what type of move would it even be? It'd have to be a younger guy, I think. I don't know if it would be a peak type player. Well, speaking of the Bucks versus the Suns chat, like, could you get Ja for Giannis? I don't think Ja individually holds that kind of trade value. Maybe you'd have to throw in a couple more Gigi Jackson and Ja Morant. That's kind of a deal, chat. But then now we're on the other side of the argument that we were just talking about, applying it to Giannis and being like, is this the player for player upgrade that we want? But again, just to throw out names, not trades that we would necessarily, if we were running teams, do ourselves, but just to throw out names to try to think of something, like a guy like, again, Cade's like too good at this point. Like, the Pistons wouldn't move on from Cade for Ja. Like, I don't know who they would move on from Cade for. Like, Cade is in that range where, like, would they trade Cade for Wembanyama right now? I mean, again, Sam would, and again, this is just my paranoia as a Spurs fan, being like, oh man, I hope this thing works out in the long run. But I'm just saying, they're up to the 5 seed. They're really playing well. I think they would have to consider, and are we trading for Wembanyama right now? We're getting an injured Wembanyama. Not that limits what we think of him long term, but again, with what we were accomplishing this season with Cade, it would put a damper on that, and how that would, the ripple effects of that long term, you definitely have to consider that. Again, like a guy like Shea, MVP, of course, like, we're not in that level. Edwards, Luka, those type of guys are untouchable. Like, Paolo is kind of in that borderline, again, not borderline untouchable range, but in a Ja conversation, if we're still giving Ja that respect, of the all-NBA level player that he's been in the past, that's still one that you have to think about a little bit. But again, Paolo, I think, just won Eastern Conference Player of the Week as well, too. So, and not that that's necessarily the award that's like, oh, well, that's the one that changed our mind on Paolo. We're keeping him around for the long term now. But again, just to say that he's playing really well, and on top of having played well and shown upside in the past. Of course, that's not the type of player. Maybe Halliburton, could it be like a Halliburton for Ja type move? Halliburton, of course, he's been traded in the past, chat. I don't know if Jamal Murray, of course, with where he's trending in his career. Booker, maybe? Like a Booker for Ja type move, if we're thinking Phoenix again. If we're just playing I Spy, just guys, do we need to flip to another game? And just, what trades can we cook up from that? Mitchell in Cleveland, again, depending on what Cleveland does in the playoffs, they don't need to necessarily make a change, just as a talent to a player-to-player comparison with, again, the way that Mitchell has played in some of these bigger moments. I don't know why you would feel the need that Ja would be a better fit than Mitchell. Again, maybe the peak Ja stuff, if his athleticism can still be the same, and he's even flashed moments of it recently too. It's definitely special compared, but Mitchell, the athleticism as well too, it's definitely in that same, it's really close to that same 1-1 category anyways. So, there's not again, it'd be a lot of thinking, a lot of really looking at the teams and seeing, like, where could the potential star player for player move be made. But I don't know, Ja for the picks in the franchise reset. Again, these picks packages now are so insane, and you have to maybe Ja Morant, it's like 8 first-round picks, and it's like, whoa, we just are getting half of the league's first-round picks back in this move, and a couple of players as well too. I don't know if Ja Morant's like a 10-piece trade type guy, but if we get with how overwhelming these trades can be, I get it makes sense on paper to pivot the franchise in the direction, but it's also not bad to be the Lakers as well too. I'm not the guy that likes to be a mid team, but I just like to be a team that is in a spot like how can we make at least how can we be a couple moves away from winning a title, or are we a couple of moves away from winning a title, and what are those moves? But the tanking thing goes into play when it's okay, we need to win a title, how do we reset the franchise? Tanking is the best way to do that. Like, that's when it becomes a thing that you actually need to be focused on as a team. Like, that's you could say the Spurs get lucky. It's definitely true. Luck definitely plays a factor into it. I'm not denying that. But with how they've used tanking as well too, it's been selective tanking, chat. It's the franchise. I mean, and we even waited a long time to tank without Tim Duncan. I mean, I need to get Brian Wright on the show. Brian Wright, call in at some point. I need to ask him, at what point did they figure out the Wembanyama thing, and did they realize, okay, we can tank now and try to get one of these young players, and we can still tank for Wemby, but I just want to know his tanking strategy. And maybe this would have to be a Brian Wright sit down in the future, chat. This is like Rem and Sam in cars getting coffee version of the show when we're older and Brian Wright's retired and he can openly talk about this stuff, because Wemby was on the scene, of course, as like 13, 14, but maybe even like 11, 12 years old. People were like, whoa, Wembanyama, like, we got to really start keeping an eye on him as an NBA prospect. So I want to know again, like, if that was a factor. But if there is a little karma in this, will the league value the fact that we have been trying to compete a little bit instead of this consistent tanking? But again, it's time to actually go get a franchise player. This is a draft that we like the potential of those franchise guys. Let's actually make the move and start tanking, and then it actually makes sense to apply that to a franchise. So again, if the Grizzlies, and it's a really good draft, I think, it's a really good draft this year, so probably a little too late to start tanking this year. They're already still a 44-win team. But 26, 27, there's definitely some good names in those classes, so is there opportunity for them to go back and get another star player? Absolutely. But with what Ja Morant, I think, still has from upside as a guy to contribute to a title team and to a guy to just be a special impact player in playoff series, I just don't think you can quite part with that level of basketball talent yet. And that's what I'm saying, Chad. If you can still maintain that level of immediate basketball talent in a trade, then yeah, absolutely do it. And, maybe if it's not like Davis for Ja, maybe we've learned a little bit of a lesson. I think Giannis is still, Giannis still definitely applies in the, if you can get Giannis on your team, you're trading for Giannis. And to be honest, if you can get Davis on your team, you're still trading for Davis. Just, you got to be careful what you're giving up in that move. But not too much, chat. Can you guys hear the thunder? I swear I just saw a lightning bolt out there as well, too, strike down. So it was, it's been stormy vibes all day, chat. Stormy Daniel vibes all day outside. It's just what it is. But, yeah, it seems like, yikes, it's finally released again. But anyways, I taking the bold approach of still having stock in Ja Morant as a basketball player, chat. It's just what it is. And again, with some of the percentages, some of the numbers, some of the durability stuff, I get that there is definite questions surrounding it. But you see, even he's always been above that 45% mark as well, too. So you start going, hey, is it moving backwards? What can be recovered from as an NBA player? But, 25, 26, you're telling me that he can't, again, even be like a second best guy in a title team. So you get in the question, like, how do we get this best player better than Ja Morant on the team if it's not trading Ja? Are we trading Jaren Jackson at this point? And then are we able to make that move where we get an immediately better player than Jaren Jackson? Like, I'm not saying I know what the immediate basketball move is. Well, the immediate basketball move is to get, I guess, a better head coach. But in terms of trading Ja Morant, chat, let's not go into the offseason as the trade Ja Morant offseason. And make no mistake, so I'll probably be cooking up Ja Morant trades in the trade machine just for the fun of it. But in the real basketball GM move, I would be much more cautious with actually trading Ja. Again, you get overwhelmed by a move. It's, what are you going to do, chat? You're throwing all your first round picks at me? I can't not say no. Milwaukee is back up by 14, so Phoenix, they just at least thought about playing together for a moment. They just needed to prove it to themselves, like, hey, Coach Bud, look at this. It's the players. We are good, and then they're just going to be bad again. Try to get Coach Bud fired. It's unfortunate. Shout out Coach Bud, chat. Coach Bud to the Grizzlies? Yikes. They were like, wait a second. Why did they fire Taylor Jenkins? Just to bring in Coach Bud? But Coach Bud and Ja Morant. Hopefully that works out. I know they're going to need to focus on some offense, so maybe Coach Bud unlocks the offense for Ja. Whatever he was able to get with Giannis, maybe there's some version of that where he can scale it to a guard and make it work with Ja, chat. Because it is the same kind of attacking downhill thing versus the Booker Durant thing is a little bit of a different offensive dynamic than a guy like Giannis or even Ja. Like, and not to say better or worse, just different on how it operates. And this is a 20-2 run now by Milwaukee. Unbelievable. Literally bringing down the rain, chat. The Thunder. Unbelievable. They had the whole Midwest in a storm right now with this performance. It's crazy. The 6th seed in the East. Lighting it up. But I don't know if the Grizzlies are in a need to call off the marriage territory. I think, unfortunately for the core of it, I think there may be moves to make. But again, we may talk about trade machine stuff as it gets later on. There is still time. We don't have to start throwing guys' names around yet. But, Ja seems like a piece. Of course, again, with the way Jaren Jackson has played this year, you'd really have to be overwhelmed in a trade for that type of move. But even the other young, like Gigi Jackson, healthy, fully, another coach is like, hey, let's just commit to developing some of these younger players, figuring out what the core of the team is going to be going forward. Maybe it does just turn around pretty quickly with the version of the guys that they have on the team as well, too. So Grizzlies, no need, I think, to quite yet start breaking up relationships. But is it on the rocks, Again, maybe not fully break up, but like call off again. I guess what is the actual relationship status right now? What is even the name of Sydney Sweeney's former fiance? Chat? Who knows? Who even is that guy? But yeah, are they actually still together and just not getting married? I mean, seems like calling off a wedding is seems like you kind of know where the relationship's headed at that point. But again, are the Grizzlies in they've called off the wedding, but they're still together kind of phase? It might be close to that. They've had a couple of fights anyways about the wedding, and I don't know if they've definitely threatened. I mean, the coach got fired, so they definitely threatened to call it off. They just actually, trading Ja might actually be the full version of that. But speaking of Phoenix, we mentioned earlier as well too, chat, of course, mentioned him a couple times already, playing tonight. And on the similar lines with Ja, like we mentioned earlier, the one thing that Matt Ishbia, and I feel like the greater NBA community is also pushing Ishbia to trade Booker. Of course, the Durant trade stuff is locked that in. Like, the man's gone this offseason. It's not even Ishbia wanting to trade Durant. Durant just, in Durant fashion, wants to leave. But shout out to Durant. I'm not saying that negatively. I'm just, it's a pattern, Chad. It's just what it is. So there will definitely be a move made, and Durant will be in a different jersey. But there will be a push at that point as well, too, to reset the full franchise and trade Devin Booker. And I can't remember who exactly I heard say this, but I remember somebody was bringing up the fact that Booker might be, like, kind of like Ja as well, too, past the point where could he be the number one guy in a title team? It's like, okay, but again, who are the number one guy is on a title team, and could Booker be the number two? Could it be a combination where it is that sort of 1-2, like we just saw Tatum and Brown win the finals, and not that those guys can't ascend to be awesome top level players in their own individual right. Like Tatum's on an first team All NBA. He's on the MVP ballot every year. Brown is an All NBA level player as well too. But again, is Tatum quite in the individual level of, and of course this year as well, like we mentioned, his all-round game has taken a step up. But you start going Jokic, Giannis, Shea, Luka, Steph, and you can get to 5 or 6 guys. I think there's a version of it, anyways. I'm saying where you can get to 5 or 6 guys before you end up mentioning a name like Jason Tatum, and maybe you bringing up Steph, you get started a little bit more immediate with the impact in there as well. But could Booker be that number one on a title team? Who really knows, chat? But that's always kind of been a question with Booker as well too. And like, he's been in a finals, proven his status, and maybe I think the one thing that Ishbia is thinking about correctly is, let's hold on to Devin Booker. So I get it, like we were saying earlier, the trade value for Booker maybe is at a peak now. If his value gets established where the team that's trading for him knows, like, hey, yeah, we're definitely bringing him in, not quite Jimmy Butler style, but definitely bringing him in as like the second best guy on the team, quote unquote, then maybe the trade package is not the same. Again, it's not Mikal Bridges, it's not, maybe Karl Anthony Towns, whatever that, but you still get Randall back in that trade, if they're just maybe able to get a better player fit in the trade, or a better player that makes sense for whatever the future of the roster is, but maybe if the value gets more established, then the trade is decreased. But I'd still be wanting to take a shot with whatever Devin Booker is. And again, we still don't know what the Durant trade is. Is it a player for player trade? Is it a trade package type move? Maybe they're able to, maybe with the trades this year, they're able to end up with one of the top picks. I don't know if we want to start diving into Durant trade machine territory. But like, where's OKC threatening to end up in the lottery? I know, with all the protections, these teams are all fending off OKC with their protections right now, and they're all tanking. But any potential, I guess the other version would give us a better glimpse of it. Protected 1-14, 1-14. Philly at 1-6, of course, is a big one. Pause. Charlotte 1-14, Washington 1-10, and Utah 1-10. So yeah, it seems like everybody with a protection in the 1-11 range is going to end up keeping their protections. Like Miami can't fall out of the lottery at this point by losing the lottery. I guess they can't even lose the lottery. The lowest they would be able to finish, of course, would be 11. But at this point in the season, anyways, up from their range at that top 8, like we were saying. So out of the Cooper Flags, well, you never know, chat. You never know. Won 5 in a row lately. Coach Spo, never mind, back in the mix. Best coach in the league. How do you say the coach for Toronto? Face the league. Scotty Barnes faced the league as well too. Scotty Barnes. See, that's the type of move, chat, like in the Ja Morant, or just what we're saying, like the player for player type move. Maybe you could get even a couple more pieces. But if you were looking at a player at the Scotty Barnes level and saying, hey, we think if we were able to bring him in, he can be unlocked as a franchise player in a better way. That trade, a couple of package pieces, is a fun like win now type move. But again, maybe Scotty Barnes not the right exact fit for that. Maybe somebody sort of on that level, like Mobley. Again, with the Cavs part from Mobley, but if they thought Mobley and Jackson could really be like the franchise combo instead of Morant and Jackson, and Mobley gets unlocked in a little bit of a different way, his offense continues to improve as well too. You just never know, Chad. But Dallas at 14, like what if Nico Harrison just wants to get really old, Chad, and just immediately continue to move up the timeline? What if he wants to pair Kyrie and Durant back up and just trade the number 14 pick for Durant? And then Phoenix would be back in the first round. They could have would they be getting a win now guy at 14? I guess you could think a little bit more win now anyways at 14. And Miami at 11 with KD. And again, at 1-14 protected, what if Miami jumps up and gets the 4th pick in the draft? Would you trade? You probably wouldn't trade the 4th pick in this draft for Kevin Durant, chat. Miami be like, oh, well, thank you. We're taking that one and keeping it ourselves. But The 11th pick in the draft for Kevin Durant. We need to do a refresh on some of these names. Fears. Our guy Jace Richardson. Colin Murphy Boyles. Would you trade Colin Murphy Boyles for Kevin Durant right now, chat? You might have to. Derek King. Right now. Con Knipple. Would the Spurs trade Con Knipple for Kevin Durant? It's a question, chat. The nip slip. You can't give up on the nip slip if you got a chance. But Igor Denham would be in that range for Dallas. Like, would Igor Denham in this Davis Irving window impact the team the same way that it would with Durant? Who knows? But, the Spurs, like we mentioned, the Spurs is a potential Durant team if that pick is 16. And then again, they're getting more things than just this year's pick, but just for the immediacy of it. I guess I was going to say, what about Philly, chat? Philly's an interesting one. I guess if we were just, what do the books even say they get, the NBA cap is different now, chat. I'm thinking old cap brain. Pause. Hey, yo. But the old school NBA salary cap, I feel like there was a way to just pay all these, overpay for Embiid, Durant, Maxey, Harden, or George, whoever else they have on the team. The Clippers, I guess, in terms of trading a first-round pick, wouldn't be able to offer much in that aspect. Probably don't even have their first-round pick, chat. Yep, OKC has the Clippers' first-round pick, of course. But maybe if there was a way to do Paul George in 5, is Paul George in 5 enough for KD, chat? I mean, Paul George in 5, 5 alone, again, that's a pretty good pick for Kevin Durant at this point. But is that like all you're trading? Is this year's 5th pick for Kevin Durant? And the Paul George contract, got salary dump Paul George in a Kevin Durant trade. Yikes, chat. The Raptors. Chat, like maybe that's the team. Maybe that's the team that we're thinking of in this situation where the Raptors are like, hey, we want to move the timeline up a little bit. Maybe there's one of the other contracts that they can move in that for as well. So, what if you were able to get Maxey in 7 for Kevin Durant? And I just don't know what the trade value is for Kevin Durant in the league. I guess for me personally, would I do, like, did I say Maxey? Did I quickly in 7 for Durant? Would I do that trade, chat, if I was the Raptors? I mean, again, from a 2K, what do you actually want to build out for this team? Do you want to bring in, not disrespectful, but just player X? Like, do you want to bring in an aging superstar with this young roster and try to somehow get that timeline to work out? Do you want Durant in there mentoring Scotty Barnes and RJ Barrett about basketball stuff, chat? The Blazers at 9. If the Blazers are like, hey, Scoot, we think Kamara, we think that this squad of guys, chat, Blanton, put those guys next to Durant, maybe this team could be a competitive playoff team. I don't know, again, if you're going to give up the 9th pick in the draft and what that contract, excuse me, chat, could be as well, too. But, again, I just don't know if the Booker move is the right move right now. I think the Booker move is on the table. With the league cap changing as well, too, that might change the landscape of how star player trades are conducted. We'll just have to see over time, of course, how that continues to play out. But I'm not super eager to just trade Booker as well. I've learned a lot, chat, over this last trade deadline with the fact that you could trade Davis for Luka. It's like, hey, you can get Luka. It's like, well, maybe you can get anybody. Maybe any star player really is on the table. Maybe this, and I know they called up for Edwards. Like, it's just the perfect situation of these GMs lining up for making this trade. But there's just always a possibility. You never know. You never know what types of moves you're able to pull the plug on. And again, with Davis in LA too, like just the possibility of what type of player needed, what type of trade needed to be made to get all the parties involved to be like, yeah, this is actually a move that makes sense, basketball and otherwise. Like, it's a crazy situation, chat. So nothing is off the table. Like, could you trade Booker for star player X and just have another young, speaking of, just go back through the names that we mentioned earlier, chat, Again, Cade is probably off the table. Paolo, but we start getting again with like Ja and stuff is on the mix. Like Booker for Ja is kind of fun. Booker, Jaren Jackson, Bane, Gigi Jackson. Again, is it immediately a better team? Is the upside of the team with Booker as the best player more than the upside with Ja? But numbers wise, I think it's all, and it's just style of play becomes a little bit of different as well too. You get some little bit more perimeter stuff with Booker, and not a little bit more perimeter stuff, but I think the team, the way they could fit into the team with Jackson, maybe you just become a little bit more of a perimeter team in general. You continue to allow Jackson to work on the perimeter, and they were running some Marvin Bagley lineup. I don't know how many games Marvin Bagley has been on the Grizzlies for, but watching that game against the Celtics the other night, like I know the Edie thing, like they've, can we get a center in there next to Jaren Jackson and a guy in the lane? Because again, Jackson obviously is going to give you the defensive stuff there, but he can be out on the perimeter with some of the switches, and maybe you need a little bit more of a defensive presence than on offense. He's going to actually, be the big man in the middle at times as well too, with some of the screen stuff and the rebounding, because that's where, Jackson can be a little perimeter focused at times. And you get Bagley in there, and again, he's not necessarily a bigger center than Jackson in that type of way, but he is always been a tenacious rebounder, and again, with not really having an outside game, just naturally plays around the rim, but that's kind of how you need him to play on this team anyways. So it's obviously a different physical matchup than a guy like Zach Edey, but that type of lineup, and then the speed you get with a smaller guy like the smaller guy like Marvin Bagley, there's like a flying aroundness to that front court as well too. That's kind of fun with both of those guys. So who knows, Marvin Bagley, Jaren Jackson, maybe that's the home that he's been looking for this whole time. But same with the Suns. Like the Grizzlies chat, I don't know if the Suns are necessarily in. Again, they'll need to check their relationship with Durant. There'll probably be a coach relationship. And if Booker just straight up requests a trade, then, what do you really do at that point, I guess? You just got to get on the machine and just hope you get that good value back, I guess. But in terms of them actively shopping Devin Booker at this point, I kind of agree with Ishbia. Like, let's at least see what we get for Durant first, and let's at least try to build around Booker again. And again, Ishbia just got there as an owner, so him wanting to reset the team could be very much on the table. But for him being like, hey, I like Devin Booker as a basketball player, and I want to still try to build a basketball team around him outside of this Kevin Durant one that we just tried. Maybe we get a different version of it. But yeah, keep Booker around. Booker, hot take, still a valuable guy still just a guy you'd want as a top 2 title contender team type guy. So anybody that's in that range that I think could be a 1 or a 2 on a title team, that untouchability factor really does start to kick in, Chad. Again, even with those number 2 players, because as we continue to mature as basketball fans here on the pod, Chad, as we continue to get more of these seasons under your belt, of course you always realize the importance of the rest of the rosters around the stars. And for a guy like myself that rooted for those San Antonio teams as well too, there is an emphasis on the quote unquote the second and third best players versus maybe some of the way other teams were set up, where Tim Duncan's sort of the legend guy, and not that there was a definite second and third between Parker and Ginobili, but just that hierarchy of best player, and then again the tandem of Parker and Ginobili as second best player, quote unquote players for that team, but just that established hierarchy of that team. But for guys that can be in that 1 to 2 mix, it's not hot take stuff, it's not new basketball, it's just stuff that just starts clicking as you watch more and more of it, and as you start putting the pieces together of all this stuff you're trying to figure out, chat, for how actually the perfect competitive team is built, I guess. But the importance of the second best player is really where you're winning your title a lot of the times, because again, you're needing your star players to come up big in clutch moments, and to a lot of times what ends up happening though is the gravity that they cause and the focus the other teams have is they just go, yeah, the star player that you have, we're not going to let him win the game. We're not going to take a chance that he is the person that is the one that wins and puts up all the numbers and has a great performance. And, you get the all-time greats like LeBron and Jordan and whatever. And it's like, it doesn't matter. It's Steph, who cares? Whatever you do, it doesn't matter. He's going to be able to get his, and the numbers are all the same. Kareem, Duncan, like we were mentioning, Shaq, Kobe, Hakeem. It doesn't, any of the top legend guys, there's a certain, of course, unstoppability factor to them. But again, just the year to year, who you can build a team with in the league at a time, all that stuff. Like, anybody that is, to me, can be considered even a second best player in a title. Like Klay Thompson, chat. Klay Thompson's big performances in Game 6 of the Western Conference Finals and in the finals. And Jamal Murray, like we've talked about time and time again, with his run in the Nuggets and that LeBron-Davis combination and the Spurs balance, and Jaylen Brown winning the Finals MVP this year instead of Jason Tatum, but Tatum was still able to impact the games a ton and almost ended up winning Finals MVP by the end of it. Like, if they had played a 9-game series, Chad, who knows? Tatum might have ended up actually being able to clinch out the MVP with a couple more wins. But I'm just not willing to part with guys at that level. Again, it was maybe the untouchability factor was like, if you can be the best guy in a title team, if you can really be in that top 7 to 8 group, then it's like, oh, we really can't be making moves. But like, again, to bring Jamal Murray back up, because I think it's just another perfect example. Like, again, it's not to disrespect Jamal Murray, but it's just to highlight his success in his role in Denver. Like, he is just the type of guy where the playoff performances and the big shots and the effort and the level of play that you're going to get from him in the playoffs is at the peak of his powers. The consistency of it, like, are you trading it for anybody in the league, chat? And if you're in that group of guys with those two, to me, there's just like Booker and Ja are still in that group of guys. And unless you're getting a reshuffling of that tier in the trade, or again, like I'm saying, the overwhelming package, it's just not really a move that is on the table. So it's like, maybe those are basic trade rules. Like, yeah, if you're not thinking you're winning the trade in any way, then you're not going to make the deal. But again, the pieces that you're seeking to actually, and the mechanics of the trade that you're actually trying to build, like, what do you want that trade to look like? There's more teams that are probably going to be willing to say, hey, let's do the picks, let's get Booker in here, let's get Ja in here, and let's reset these franchises in a different direction. We'll bring in these new star players, we'll add to this team, whatever it is. But unless it's a definite, immediate, I know what this basketball impact is, or like I'm saying, if you can trade Booker for a top 3 pick in the draft, if you can trade Ja Morant for a top 3 pick in this year's draft, like, we actually know, post lottery, whenever that day is, we'll actually know what the top 3 is. So, like, if you're trading for a known top 3 pick, then of course we're back into the tier of like franchise guy arguments, and the tier of basketball player you're getting is different than just a vague first round pick, or we know that the pick is going to be in the mid rounds or whatever. But again, just don't be panicking and just trading all your guys, and especially now as well too, with the way the caps are all structured and how difficult it is to be able to just add guys in free agency and to clear cap space and to make all these moves. Like, if you already have a guy on your team and you can have the advantages that you've had for investing in him, and of course he's going to have his advantages potentially for the awards that he's won and the accomplishments that he's had. But I don't know if you want to start going out and getting other people's contracts as well either too, chat. But both of those teams, I mean, again, there's going to be changes in the offseason, but I don't know if it needs to be to those level of players. I don't know if it needs to be Ja, and I don't think it needs to be Booker. At least not quite yet, chat. But in terms of other relationship status teams as well too, is Miami... It is weird to even, I guess, take a quick scan and say, like, who would be on par to be the most dramatic teams. Because the reason I guess the Grizzlies and the Suns kind of jump out is because, again, their status in the league as of right now is a little higher than maybe they could be 6 or 7 months from now, depending on, like we're saying, what happens with the front office stuff. But Because, like, the Nets, Sixers, Hornets, Wizards, like, these bottom tier teams in each of the conferences, like, we know, of course, that there is a certain level of change and a certain level of upgrades. Just we know that there's moves that are going to be made from those teams. Nothing is really going to be surprising from those teams. I guess what would be surprising? For Philly, I guess, is it surprising if Embiid even gets traded at this point, chat? And that's another, I guess, major relationship status that needs evaluated. But I feel like we've been evaluating it all year. So is anybody... Oh, man, this is tough, chat. But is anybody... Like, what is the pro Embiid camp right now? And again, it's not pro Embiid in general. But is it the pro Embiid is going to be the MVP of the league again? Is it... Okay, like we're saying, Embiid, maybe there's questions about him as a lead title guy. But if he's out there as your number 2 in a different scenario, or Maxey just continues to skyrocket levels and becomes one of those main guys, or again, he finds himself in a different situation. But at this point, and I'm not saying there's a lot more guys than this that I would take over Embiid, but just to compare him to the guys that we just mentioned, I would still take Booker over him. I would take Booker over Embiid at this point. I was gonna say still, but maybe still compared to this season. But at this point, building a team, however that team would look, Booker as a second best player, Embiid as a second best player, however it looks, I would rather just have Booker on my roster than the other guys that we mentioned as well too, chat. But that doesn't mean that, like I'm saying, I don't think Embiid can't be a major impact title guy. But is he down to like a number 3 on a title team, chat? It's tough. So maybe Paul George gets back to number 2, and then, like we're saying, Maxey emerges to number 1. But that's really the only hope. So if you're going to get that trade offer for Embiid, and I'm not necessarily, and with what he's meant to the franchise as well too, that would be a great scenario where maybe I'm sitting here like, hey, let's not necessarily give up on Embiid right now. But of course, the injury histories, and especially for a guy his size, is definitely something that has to be maybe taken into a little bit more consideration than a guard or a wing, just as unfortunate as it is. And with the level of play that he gave as well too this year, I don't know what we were going to expect, but a lot of it was just shot making as well. But then there was some movement stuff, so who knows if it was all effort or if it was actually, maybe this guy is got some wear and tear that is actually really added up in a major way here. But I mean, if you paired him up with any of the top guys, chat, like what would be a quick Embiid trade machine? Like, would the Knicks trade Towns for Embiid at this point? And again, for this season, the immediate impact of this season, you don't have Embiid, you have Towns, you like what you have for the combination again for this year, and it makes a lot of sense. Would you want to be breaking that up? Probably not, but for the long term of it as well too, even long term being the next title window, next 3 to 4 seasons, I still think the Knicks are kind of happy betting on their guy as the main one. Like we're saying, Mobley for Embiid. So we can look it up. I think Simmons had him in the 50s in the trade value. So there's definitely a lot of hypothetical names that we could throw out there as, again, not saying that that's accurate to what we would necessarily place him out on that list, but there's a lot of names that you could have a conversation about. What would you move for Joel Embiid? Would the Thunder move Hartenstein and Jalen Williams and some picks for Joel Embiid? I mean, it sounds like the peak basketball versions of it sounds like Embiid and Shea and Chet is kind of a can't miss combination. But then again, from what we're getting from Embiid, I don't know if they're necessarily going to want to part from J Dub as well. But they are not. They're especially with the cap stuff, a little bit more handicapped, I think, for winning the title. Maybe even than Phoenix is. Like, Phoenix is obviously handicapped for winning the title right now. But depending on what happens with that Durant trade, they may be able to reset the salary stuff in a little bit of a way as well, too. And be a more maneuverable team in the future. To Yes, they set themselves up with the Durant move to be more successful, but they also set themselves up to make themselves more successful, if that makes sense, by getting under some caps and stuff and giving them some little more roster flexibility with some of those moves. But with the George contract especially, and I don't know what that might have only been like a 2 or 3 year deal, but did he get a 4-year from Philly? Like that could be a real, you don't want to call it Beal chat, because George is still a pretty good player. Beal still has moments, of course, too, being a really, really solid high level player. But I would put, of these 3 teams, I'm putting Philly the number 1 team so far, as relationship status, time to evaluate, time to see what the potential moves are to get this to do. And maybe it's because we know that, of course, the Grizzlies have already made that head coaching change, and we're almost certain that the Suns are going to trade Durant, and that saga has been playing out for a while now too. Like, those 2 things are a little bit less surprising heading into the offseason. Not that the Philly thing would be surprising, but maybe it's like, oh, Embiid, the trade actually happened. Oh, George, oh, Maxey, like whatever actually ended up going down actually went through. Like, I feel like that would be maybe it actually happening might actually be a little bit more surprising than, again, like we're saying, the Grizzlies making a move or the Suns making a move that we already kind of think that is going to happen. But with this Suns team, another thing I was going to look up while I was at work, but again, just too many people asking for tables, chat. It's just what it is. One of those days. I was trying to figure out the best basketball reference way to figure out these, and again, a tough term to label a team, chat, but these disappointing teams, which is like a compliment to, of course, how great the talent is on the teams. But to have the 2 guys at this level, of course, and the other talent around it, like maybe there are more teams with more depth that have maybe not achieved to the levels that we thought as well too. But to not make the playoffs, and not even to not make the playoffs, but the fact that there's a play-in game as well too, where you get the top 10 teams at least have a shot, 1 through 6 are in the playoffs, but at least 9 and 10 now have a shot to make the playoffs. The fact that you're not even going to be a top 10 team in your own conference, with Durant, who we still think can be a contributing title guy, and Booker, who is still a contributing title guy, is like one of the more aggressive underachieves that we've seen in NBA history, chat. And again, the over-under standpoint of it, like 48 wins, they're going to be at 35. They're going to pick up a couple more. So, are they going to get 3 more wins here, chat? Probably not, but they're going to be within 10, 12 of their over. Like, Philly probably 48.5. Philly probably had a 50 win over-under, right? And they have less wins than Phoenix. So they probably have, they were at 50.5 for their over-under. So Philly is underachieved by more losses in terms of, that expectation preseason. But again, Durant and Booker are actually playing. Like, at least Philly has the excuse of the fact that Embiid's not out there, and George and Max. Like, at least they've all missed time. So on the resume, that is something to point to be like, hey, these guys at least weren't out there. I know, don't look at the numbers when they were out there. It doesn't matter what they were performing. Just the games they weren't out there, we write all those off. This season's a wash. We just have to run it back next year and see what happens. The fact that Durant and Booker are actually out there mostly on a night-to-night basis up until, Durant got hurt here for a week or 2, or, any Knicks and them just missing games throughout the season. But they have been pretty consistently out there as teammates, and just still, Chad, have managed to somehow underachieve in this way. It's kind of incredible. So I was trying to look up, there's no way to look up rosters that have guys that have made multiple All-NBAs and have missed the playoffs, but you can look at guys that missed the playoffs in their All-NBA seasons. So again, like Durant and Booker, like we're saying, there's a level that they have as players in the league currently, but it may not be represented in this year's awards because of the success of the team. So is Booker still potentially a top 15 guy in the league? Absolutely. Is he going to be third team All NBA this year? Probably not, but who knows? With injuries, maybe there is a chance. If Booker gets on third team All NBA, then the league might actually have to go back and look at some of those rules. But again, like, could he be in that mix? Yes, but is he still perfect in that type of guy for that number one role, chat? You know, it's still kind of a question. But again, for them to be at that spot and for them to be out there night to night competing the way that they are, and still, like we're saying, yes, they've been handicapped by some contracts in a major way, but have still kind of made good moves around those contracts, which is like another reason why I kind of want to see what they do without Booker, because again, they've made good moves. So like, they're not going to lose the Beal contract, unfortunately, in a Durant trade, which maybe becomes the one thing that you have hope of in a Durant trade as well too. Like, is there a way to work Beal into this somehow and get both the? I guess they can't aggregate because of the cap. It's just a tough world these days, chat. It's just a brutal NBA world. It just has to be a Durant one-off pause, and then that even limits the trade a little bit more because you can't put like your own filler salary in there with a guy like a Koji or Grayson Allen, or who's ever under the minimum contract going into the offseason for next year. But there was one team that I found that had multiple All-NBA players in a season and didn't make the playoffs that year. And it was Oscar Robertson. I want to say it was either 67. No, he didn't win MVP. Oh, did he win MVP of the league this year as well too? Whoa. So yeah, they went 39 and 43. So again, I don't know this overall roster, like what the actual talent was of it here. But you got we know Jerry Lucas, of course. You've got Jerry Lucas putting up a 20 and 19. Oscar winning, I guess, 5th in MVP this photo. Oh, leading the league in scoring is what I'm looking at here, the bolded out. But still, 2 guys on first team All-NBA, 2 guys putting up 20 and 20, combined, but putting up 40 whatever on the box scores with all the numbers combined. You've got Happy Harrison, and I guess you got Oscar at 65, Happy Harrison at 48, Adrian Smith at 15 a game, Connie Durking at 83 a game. Couple of guys in and out as well too in the double digit range. But this year, this time in the NBA, there is, I want to say, 12 teams in each conference. Oh! In chat, they didn't even call them conferences back then. They called them divisions. Sorry, 6 teams in each division. So they let the top 4 teams from each division advance. So the Bulls made the playoffs this year at 29 and 53, and the Royals missed the playoffs this year at 39 and 43. But the Royals were 5th in the Eastern Conference, and the Bulls were 4th. So the last cutoff playoff team in the Western Conference that year. And again, they're not too far off. They're actually a better team than one of the playoff teams as well too. But for them to have 2 first team All-NBA guys and for them not to win 40 games did seem a little bit surprising. Of course, we did just mention him a couple of live streams ago, so maybe that's another reason why this team is on the mind, chat. But you do have that Lakers Nash Howard season in there, where this one season they go 27 and 55, but did they traded Dwight in the offseason, chat. Didn't even need to see it again in the regular season. They were good. But I still think that they were near, oh wait, and I'm going back on, was that Clint Capella? Okay, wait, what were we looking up, chat? Why did I just draw a blank on that? But, oh wait, we were looking up this this team from Dwight Howard, Kobe, Nash. Who else was on the graphic? Dwight Howard, Kobe, Nash, Ron Artest. And who was the fifth player? It's like Luke Walton just on the graphic, just randomly being like, hey guys, I'm the fifth star on this team, but also I'll be coaching the team in a couple of years. It's just what it is. But yeah, the Lakers 13 and 14 did not win that many games, but did not have that core. And again, the times of the careers that they were getting in, a little bit like Durant-ish, but the times of the careers that they were getting in, Steve Nash, 30, 16-year vet at this point. You've got Howard, 8 years in the league, but he is that big athletic center type. So the aging of that as he hits 27. So they did get Dwight in his prime. It's almost a little bit like the reverse Durant Booker, where the younger player goes to join sort of the older star. Booker got traded to play with Durant. Durant's, I guess, the Kobe in this situation. But yeah, that team definitely obviously should have done a little bit more. Did get swept by the Spurs in the first round of the playoffs. 45 games in the regular season is a little bit low. But again, there are kind of obvious red flags and obvious reasons, kind of looking back, why a team like that didn't work out. Same with a team like Charles Barkley on the Rockets. I don't know if we need to go back and remind the people of the Charles Barkley Rocket run, but at the time, it's like almost like he's playing for the Knicks, chat. You're joining a team. I guess he did get that one All-Star season, 57 and 25. Him and Hakeem. And what did they end up? They made the conference finals, lost to Jazz in 6, chat. This might have to be one of our next rewatches, is the 97 Western Conference Finals. Hakeem and Barkley versus Stockton and Malone. How did Stockton and Malone get this win, Shaq? Drexler? So, I don't know. Again, this might... Mario Ellie not playing too bad either. Like, we might have to go back and judge the quote-unquote disappointment factor for this team, but this is one you always kind of hear brought up a lot as well, too, for those type of roles. Finished 41 and 44 the next season, and of course, Barkley starts to take a step back. Hakeem, I guess both of them missing a ton of time that year as well, too. But, yeah, honestly, could not have predicted it ever going this bad. So sorry, Phoenix Suns fans, but it's just what it is. So, and another interesting piece of the Durant legacy as well, too, not even the trade request part of it, where it's like, oh, we get it. Everywhere Durant goes, he requests a trade. But the in general sort of franchise conversation that you have with these players. And, LeBron, of course, is a great exception to this rule because he's been able to bounce around to all these franchises and impact these franchises wherever he go, wins the title, and it's a reason why he's in the legacy. But just, again, maybe it's not even like a thing to consider in the rankings or whatever, but just a way to look at the types of personalities that you bring in as your superstars. But just the stability that you get with a guy like Steph Curry and a guy like Duncan and a guy like these guys that were able to stick around all these years. Like, it almost makes you go back, with the retrospective to those OKC days. And not, think of Durant's basketball talent in any way, but, the heartbeat of that team, of course, his basketball talent. And not that we didn't know that Westbrook wasn't bringing in a certain energy on that team, but the energy to lift that team to the success that it did. And again, Durant's basketball talent has always been able to translate onto these courts, but him actually needing that second personality in the way, because that's what he's kind of been chasing this whole time, is could he be the lead personality on a basketball team? Like, we've always, because that's the part that's gonna be the question that's going to emerge out of this. Of course, this whole run of Durant's legacy, him in Brooklyn, him in OKC before, but him in Brooklyn and him in Phoenix and him wherever he goes next, is going to be the legacy of Whoa. That was a speaking mid-burp there, Chad. All these places he wasn't able to win a title. Durant, he can't win the title as the best basketball player. And it's like, okay, there may be, we can have that debate, but Durant can't win. I mean, he did win the title as the best basketball player, but of course, with Steph on the team, we get to the level at which these people are saying. But could he? The real question becomes, of course, can he win the title as the best basketball personality on a team? And all of these teams that, and maybe they're, Harden and Kyrie were on that Brooklyn team. There are other, Bradley Beal and Devin Booker are on the Suns team. Like, there have been other star players that also contribute to the varying degrees of success that the teams that have been on have had. But all of the teams that Durant has been on outside of the ones with Steph, and I guess, doing the retrospective, the Westbrook retrospective, Chad, I don't know if we got a word out there, but the retrospective on Westbrook is like, oh, maybe that's what the light that was clicking was like. Maybe Westbrook can lead the team from a franchise standpoint. And again, it's like, we know that he brings that energy and he can be the face and he can be a guy that sells tickets and all that stuff. But that was like real, of course, title contending energy. And it always got sort of marred by the basketball stuff that would happen with it as well, too. And some of the decisions on the court that could be made at times. But his personality, his ability as a guy, as a leader, and again, not to say that Durant doesn't, I guess, what are we saying, chat? But, not trying to be critical of Durant here, but just saying, like, when he was with Westbrook, there was this competitive stability there year to year. And when he was with Steph, of course, it maintained as well too. But these other teams with these personalities, so maybe it does open up a conversation about Booker as well in a bigger role like that. But I think, like we were saying with Booker, what was really on the table for Booker was for him to elevate into that conversation more so than him already being in that conversation and working his way out. Like, that title run that he had to take Phoenix there was awesome, but we know kind of what that Western Conference looked like. And again, Chris Paul was on that team as well too. Like, it kind of proved Chris Paul's leadership abilities a little bit as a title contending type guy. And Advia is just a casual 30, 15, and 10 against Atlanta tonight. So, Advia, again, Durant next to Advia and Scoot, Kamara, Shaden Sharp, Klingon. Maybe we need to actually figure out what the lineup would be, Chad. Because, again, maybe some of these guys are in the trade. But Klingon's a piece. Advia's a piece. Shaden Sharp, to me, is still in. Scoot Henderson, those are still pieces. Got to at least see what you have in a team there. But you throw Durant out there. I mean, Durant out there with, like we're saying, Klingon, Advia, and Sharp. That's a decent foursome. For sure. Pause. I don't know if that's... is that going to win more than one playoff round? It may be a little limited. Because, again, that's like a Durant really needs to be like a star player there. And do they have a personality, I guess, is Scoot Henderson going to be the championship personality on that team? But I guess it was making me think a little bit back, to that. Oh, and there it is, chat. The one time in episode where we crash out and lose all the background material. Oh, just the camera this time. I thought we lost the webpage as well, too. But let's see here. Where'd we go, chat? Oh, I shut down the app. I thought I just muted it on the thing. Here we go. Oh, just like an NBA player, chat. Cutting back while we're picking our nose. It is what it is. And we're... IT. You don't do us dirty like that next time. Pause. But, yeah, Durant, Booker, Advia. What are we rambling about, chat? Advia, do we need to do a relationship status check on Denny Advia? Blazers, don't break up with Denny Advia yet. He's a keeper, chat. Maybe Denny Advia is the Sydney Sweeney right now of the league. He's got us so excited. It's hard to even mention. Pause. Difficult to even mention. But let's take... well, wait a second. I was going to go to break. I'm not paying attention, chat. We got a minute left in Phoenix versus Milwaukee. Milwaukee's up by 7. Yeah, Phoenix doesn't even want to make the play-in. Let's be honest. Again, the 11 seed's crazy. 11 seed's nuts. They're only there by choice. They want to tank. Durant doesn't want to be there. He wants to leave and get Coach Bud fired. He just wants to destroy the franchise, I guess. Shout out Kevin Durant. But, yeah. I guess we got one. We got a Colin Gillespie versus Ryan Rollins jump ball. What is happening here, chat? It's beginning of April, end of March in the NBA. It's just that time of year. I was gonna say beginning of April, but April you start thinking playoff times. But beginning of April, should I say first week of April? This is what we're getting. You get a little Ryan Rollins versus Colin Gillespie every now and then. Great. Corner 3 by, I almost say Grayson Allen, chat. Caleb Martin? Who do they have? Cody? I think it's Cody. Is it a Martin twin? I'm just seeing the beard, honestly, the silhouette. Was that a Koji? Who was that? It is Martin. Cody Martin. Okay, shout out. Not able to get it to go. 7-point game with 38 seconds left. So, let's go. Oh, Kamara, he fouled out. Yeah, that's a perfect time. Kamara's fouled out for the Blazers, so there's no need to watch the last minute 45 for this. We can go to break and be back on the other side. No, we'll be back quick, chat. Don't worry. Oh, there we are, chat. We're back, and we're just in time, speaking of the Grizzlies, to catch the last 8 minutes of Grizzlies versus Warriors. And I mean, again, I feel like I'm not saying anything controversial tonight, chat. Well, I mean, I guess you could just, depends on which sentence we're talking about. But the don't trade Ja Morant quite yet takes. I mean, he's got 31 and 5 tonight. And again, Warriors matchups, we get him in the playoffs. We get him against the best of the best. But he just dropped 44 against Cleveland the other night as well, too. So, I know they lost that game, but played pretty decisively as well. So, in, pods again, probably not. Warriors, do they have the rim protection and the ability to stop Morant from? But who does, chat? And, the Warriors were one of the few teams that we actually saw him play well against in the playoffs. And again, not that he hasn't played well a bunch in the playoffs, just the availability factor of it. How many times have we actually seen him in the playoffs? And then when we have, the Warriors were the team that we saw him play his best basketball against in that setting. And, sometimes this can happen with the role guy, or of course, like the secondary players on the teams, where their playoff performances, of course, can jump up their value in the regular season for the upcoming year, and the teams can view them differently depending on a better player performance. But I'm sure that happens with star players as well too, chat. And maybe, do we have to evaluate at times? And I mean, of course, like we said, everybody's doing it right now with Ja Morant. Pause. But the evaluation of what we saw from those playoff performances, because I still go back to those all the time in my mind and be like, yes, those are the moments where Ja Morant proved that he is a special enough talent to be in that special class of what we're talking about. I don't want to keep saying on top of touchability, chat. Do we keep saying keepability? Maybe that level of keepability for Ja Morant. Like, he can be in that special class if you think back to those playoff moments. But then if you think about what it is, a playoff moment, it becomes an interesting thing to look at. And again, to talk about Phoenix, that's kind of what we're thinking about with the Suns. If we're thinking, oh, this team should be a competitive team, this team should be much better, it's from those basically, 2 to 3 playoff games? I mean, that series against the Nuggets was a second round series, if I'm not mistaken. So they did win a playoff series. And did they win against the Timberwolves one year? I know the Nuggets beat the Timberwolves, and then, of course, the Timberwolves ended up getting their revenge. But yeah, with Monty Williams lost in the semis to the Nuggets. I guess we're trying to figure out who they lost in the first round to that year. Or they beat the Clippers in the first round that year. Pause. 4-1. So went to take on the Nuggets. And it was basically that 2-game stretch, where Booker put up 47 in game 3, and then Durant put up, or Jokic put up 53. Jesus, chat. Speaking of rewatch, we might have to go back and rewatch game 3 and 4 of this series. I honestly, like, there's series where you remember the games, or games where you remember the games, and then moments, all this stuff. And then there's games where you remember, like, how you felt after the game. Like, I almost remember the feeling that I had almost more. Hey, yo, pause, chat. But the post-basketball clarity for this Nuggets-Suns game was just intense, apparently. But, Murray himself put up 28. Jokic a little light on the, what do we have, 4 rebounds? Just, I was going to say, a little low on the box score for Jokic, 53, 11, and 4. I feel like he's put up better total box scores in the playoffs since then, which is the insane numbers. Is the 30, 20, and 20 game a better box score game? Do we have to go to game score now for Jokic? Chat. Okay, Nerd Corner. This is what happens. You stick to the end of the live show, chat. You get a little bit of Nerd Corner It is what it is. I guess, you can't even do the full player careers. You can do that in the NFL. You can look at all of their games for their career, but of course you're only looking at 17, 18, whatever, 16, whatever era they played in. You're only looking at that many games at a time. So one NBA season box score game wise can be like, I know, like the physicality of the NFL people. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. Just the box score wise, it's like 3 or 4 NFL seasons, of course. So I don't know if it's just a page thing. They just don't want to load a page that big, chat. But LeBron's playoff page is starting to get up there. So that's his second best game score game. Yeah, I mean the 53, of course, having any number that big in there is gonna raise that up. And I guess 20 for 30 is crazy, chat. This game's got to be on YouTube. I mean, what are we doing? What was the score as well, too? We have to go back and check the score here real quick. I think that was the close one as well. Yeah, 129 to 124. Epic second half. I mean, it was really the second half that they pulled out a one. What was the first half? 61 to 63. So they were up in the first half. And that one, 24 in the first half, 29 in the second half. That's great for a rewatch, too. I mean, obviously, great balance. Now, a 53-point performance is probably going to be a pretty balanced effort. That's usually not a guy drops 40 in the first half, and then you're like, wait a second, he only put up 13 in the second half? What happened? But, sometimes you're like, oh, the guy had 25 in the first half and then 7 in the second half. And it's like, oh, yeah, still awesome. Put up, 32 points. But, again, it's like, oh, he could have put up the 53, could have really been iconic. But you had Booker and Durant both with 20-point performances in each half as well, too. I mean, you got, I guess, 36 and 30. What did they do in the second half? 17 and 15. What do we got? Big fourth quarters, chat? I'm spoiling the game. Booker 0 for 1 in the fourth. 8 minutes. Big Durant quarter. Big Shamit quarter, chat. 14. I forgot about the Shamit quarter. Hey, yo. Fourth quarter, game 4. So, I mean, as much as we talk about Durant and Booker and how awesome they need to be and all this stuff, again, it's like Shamit goes 4 for 6 in a quarter and they look awesome and just totally changes how we view this Nuggets franchise. Like, yeah, man, they were right there with that Nuggets, or with that Suns franchise, with how competitive they were with this Nuggets team. And like Booker's gonna, I was saying Booker's gonna win the NBA MVP after that, but ultimately didn't quite happen. And again, the rest of the games in the series as well too. And I think, was there some injuries that happened in that series as well for Phoenix? Durant and Booker both played 40 minutes the next game. Maybe they didn't, chat. Maybe I'm getting that combined with the next time they matched up in the playoffs as well. Booker with 12, 4 for 13 in game 6, chat. It's a yikes. It is what it is. But I'm just obsessed with the upside of this Booker Durant team. I just want to go back into a time machine and figure out, one, how to restart this franchise, but I got to figure out how to get me and Sam in this front office. If we ever get stuck in a Groundhog Day loop, chat, they're going to need to happen. It's going to need to happen soon for the people that want this Durant Booker core to work out in Phoenix. But that's going to be, of all the things we could go fix, I guess, in the world with a Groundhog Day loop, we're going to go figure out how to break into the Phoenix Suns front office and run the team. Like, we have to figure out how to develop the career and the relationships to be able to show up one day and have the Phoenix Suns job, and then be able to, you're literally restarting every day. So we have to get the Phoenix Suns job but if we have the Phoenix Suns job in that day, then going forward, we have the Phoenix Suns job, right? So then we're just GM of the Phoenix Suns, and then it's on us at that point to try to fix this team. So we would I guess the end of the loop would not just be us getting the Phoenix Suns job. It would be us convincing Durant to stay. Because if we convince Durant to stay, then we can go into the offseason with, like, into the sunset. Like, okay, Durant and Booker, we'll build the team. We'll be fine. So, hopefully, again, in this Groundhog Day loop, we're getting in the right time. Maybe we need to go back a few years and after this season and see what happens. Because this is where they make. Is Beal on this team? I forget. Or it's Chris Paul is the one that got hurt. That's what it is, chat. Yikes. Chris Paul was the one that got hurt, and they had those big performances after Paul. So I remember maybe his play in that timeline. I have to go back and remember how he was affecting the on-court stuff with that team. And, it also just opens up more shot. Like, Durant and Booker just have to do more. Chris Paul as well, too, not like them maybe getting into their action a little bit more. And maybe I shouldn't thrust as with the hands as well, too. I'm saying getting into the action. But, as them actually having to initiate right away versus them being set up by Chris Paul. And then as a byproduct, you've got like Shamet in the corner versus, Paul's a good 3-point shooter, but just a different kind of guy in the corner aspect of it. And I know we're finishing up Grizzlies Warriors on one screen, but again, dual screens, chat, the advantage. We've got the start of Nuggets versus Timberwolves on the other one, and the Nuggets jump out to a 14-2 lead. So I know their just general playoff upside is in question, but this would be one of the teams that you would really question that up against, would be the matchup of the bigs. Oh, and Peyton Watson! Is Swatson? I mean, that's got to be a nickname, right? Is he on this team yet? Yeah, he's got to be a rookie on this team. Peyton Swatson? Yeah, chat. Called it. Peyton Swatson absolutely meeting Gobert at the rim. Oh, did they call a foul on that? Oh, chat, that looked clean on the replay. Any block shot on Gobert's got to be not a foul. He's got to let that go. Yikes. But either way, ball don't lie. I think he missed the first free throw. I was just so bummed out with, I guess, the block and finding out the Swanson nickname. Not bummed out about that, but just focused on looking at that. That got distracted. Bruce Brown as well, too. Remember his impact for the Nuggets. Very important. But, I mean, Durant and Booker, just what a fun combination to have, chat. And, again, like with the contract stuff, it's just the unfortunate timing. It really is, of course, maybe karma for the salaries opening up for Durant to be able to go to OKC, or to go from Golden State to OKC. Or did I still get that backwards? To go from OKC to Golden State with the big spike and with them being able to afford him in that way. It's like, okay, maybe the Beal trade is still a difficult move to work around in the old salary cap. But again, the way you're just able to sort of run up the tax bill, you could either, trade for a team that's willing to run up their tax bill with Beal and just do that situation all over again. Or you say, hey, we'll just outspend our problem. And Ishbia goes, well, we're throwing money at this anyways. I'm one of the richest owners, and I guess we don't know exactly where he compares to richest owners in the league, but he's got to be up there a little bit, chat. So, maybe he's throwing money around as a young owner and just kind of bringing in more stars to surround him, or however the situation goes, for the cap to settle that way with Beal. And I'm trying to remember the timeline, because we knew what the CBA was going to be as well too, and then it took that season before it was actually going to kick into effect. So I don't remember exactly which season. This would have been the 22-23 season. I think this new CBA was the 23-24. So I don't think it was effect in this offseason, but maybe went into effect in the start of the league year. So you could make the moves in the offseason, but then deal with the I don't remember exactly, chat. Again, nerd corner. That nerd corner is too intense for the pod. That's we'll have to save that one for the next slow day at work, I guess. The timeline of when that CBA kicked in and how that aligns with the Bradley Beal trade. Just working up some notes for the early Suns doc when I guess REMINGTOM Plus buys the rights to that, chat. Well, there's a lot of documentaries out there that we're fighting for the rights for, but I think we can get the rights for this Phoenix Suns run. I know, people are going to be thinking about it from the success aspect, but we're going to be looking at the what if aspect of it. Because again, those two games, I don't know how we lay it out, chat, but maybe that'll be like the start of it. It'll be like the highlight of those two games like awesome, and then we'll. Sometimes I don't necessarily like when a movie starts at, or any sort of documentaries. We'll throw them into the movie category for this because make no mistake, chat, this will be cinema. The Rem and Sam Phoenix Suns documentary. Ishbia, we'll call it What Ifbia. The Phoenix Suns 30 for 30 on Durant and Booker. I know there's some Sarver storylines in there as well too, but do we have to address that in the doc? Chat, we're here for a good time, but then you start getting into like what do we need to address? But what Ifbia doesn't sound like really that sounds like a documentary where we maybe could leave out some of the more serious storylines and just focus on it's a doc for the basketball fans, chat. Because with documentaries as well too, they want to get documentary fans. So are we just watching this ad? Sorry, chat. Shout out to this lawnmower though. That robot did look pretty cool that they had moving around, but did it look a little cyber? It did look a little cyber trucky though for mower. So not cool, chat. Burn that. But anyways, what were you talking about? What Ifbia? The Suns doc? Yeah, it's a doc for the basketball. Sometimes with the docs, you want to get the doc fans, so you want to lean into the drama stuff of it. But and I don't know what Celtic City. That might be a pretty basketball heavy doc. But then with the Boston storylines, you feel like you'd have to bring that up in a Celtics doc as well too. So again, maybe it gets. But then if you mention it in passing, it's like, well, then we're gonna get roasted in the reviews for not diving deeper into the storyline. So maybe we start it post Sarver. I don't know. Maybe a pre-credit scene. I don't know how we're able to work this out, Chad, but we'll figure out how to keep What Ifbia to nice. Because like one of my and I don't know if it necessarily works out because of this, but like one of the best 30 for 30s is that Reggie Miller doc, and that Reggie Miller is just so much fun, and the rivalry is just so great between him and Spike. I mean, if we're talking about characters as well too, if we're just casting a movie, I know it becomes one of those things. It's like Reggie Miller, if we're doing because you get to compare like talent to actors. So where it's like, okay, best actor needs to be the best basketball player. So is, Denzel Washington, is he Michael Jordan, is LeBron James Robert De Niro? There's Sidney Poitier. I don't know how we want to do the comparisons here, chat, but is Cooper Flagg Robert De Niro? I don't know. Larry Bird? I guess we could go back in history and find a mod. Is George Mike and Humphrey Bogart? Sometimes we get into comparisons like that, but in terms of actually the movie, like Reggie Miller from an entertainment standpoint is, and I know we've talked about this in the past defending Reggie Miller, but I think we mentioned this in the aura rankings, actually, if you guys haven't. We did an NBA all-time aura rankings because we were trying to figure out where Jason Tatum ranked all-time in NBA aura. And make no mistake, the list is a little bit long, Chad. It's just what it is. Pause. But you can go check out that aura rankings on the channel if you guys haven't. The podcast version is on the feed as well, too. All the versions are up as pods on the, whatever audio platforms you guys end up listening to. They're up there. But yeah, anyways, that Reggie Miller doc is so much fun. And then that Fab 5 doc, of course, I'm by Fabulous 5. Should I clarify? Check the Michigan 90s basketball team documentary with Chris Webber and Jalen Rose. We're gonna be biased, of course, toward that team and just being immersed in sort of the older versions of our team. Of course, not teams that we were able to experience, but in person, but just getting to relive the history of that through the quality of that documentary. And again, the quality of it's one of the best made ones as well too. But and it does, of course, intersect with some drama stuff, but even the drama still like kind of becomes, it's still like basketball drama. And again, it's all like life drama. I mean, there's real life reasons to why Chris Webber, there's real life reasons to why we all take money when we take money, chat. There's real life reasons to why a guy might be wanting to help get his family and elevate the people around him when these offers are made. But again, it's not like deals in. It's not like I have to go back and remember. It's not like Chris Webber was ever going to go to jail. And again, if it is, it's like Shout out Chris Webber, yikes, chat. But again, it'd be like the the college fraud people going to jail, where it's like, okay, obviously, you know, and that's not saying whether it's on the same thing. I mean, we'd have to go back and look at the mechanics of that Chris Webber deal. I'm sure whatever he was. I mean, literally just taking some. I don't even think it was that bad for the time, chat, either. Like, it wasn't like the guy was he just like buying it? I mean, you start putting assets versus cold hard cash. Like, what's necessarily the difference? You start buying a guy a Land Rover, or just gonna give him the 100 and whatever K. Like, is there really a difference there? But either way, like, I mean, what did Jalen Rhodes say the going rate was back in the day? Like 500K in a Cadillac, 50K in a Cadillac. I don't know what inflation the numbers are, but Steph Curry, should we just? Oh, I feel like we have to mention the fact that Steph Curry's got a 50, 10, and 8 as well too. Since we just have the game on in the background and it's on, and Steph Curry's awesome as well too. So, as once again we've turned into a lead. Hey, Steph Curry is still like a top player in the NBA. I mean, stay tuned for the All NBA conversations. Do I just want to step on him now, chat? Because we always kind of let the conversation play out a little bit too, as well. But Steph, I guess I don't know, because we'll have to see actually how we need to lay out the team. But Steph is right there for first team, and we got to be the first one to say that. I know we've highlighted his standing in the league still as maybe higher than most, but for me, he's still in the mix for first team. I don't know where they're at for standings in the league. I don't even want to look, because it doesn't matter. I don't care. They could be 7th. They could be 8th. They could be in the play-in. Steph with this team in the play-in, perfect. Put him on first team. He still deserves a chat. But yeah, I guess we were trying to watch this to focus on Ja. We're still just rambling about this Phoenix Suns team. But I still got Booker stock. I mean, if they're gonna trade, I should be campaigning for them to trade Booker, because I subconsciously should start doing some psychology to get Booker on. We're trying to get all these untradeable guys on the Spurs. We're trying to talk teams into trading Cade and Shea, and I mean, is Giannis? What's the tradability of Giannis? Is Steph going after somebody right now? I mean, Green is in on the mix, of course. If words are being exchanged, Draymond's gonna get in. Oh, is it Bane, chat? Bane talking to Steph? Oh, Bane blocking Steph off the off play, chat. What do you call it? Dead ball situation? Steph Curry went to shoot after a dead ball, and Bane blocked him clean as well too. It wasn't a foul. I don't know if that's why Steph got. I mean, Steph wasn't necessarily going to swing on him, but it was like, hey, what are we doing here? And again, he's like Desmond Bane, so one of the more jack players in the league. If we were doing a pound for pound, I know Bane is more in Steph's weight class, but and Steph is jacked up. Make no mistakes. Steph is a strong player. We can read the articles. I know Draymond. What did Doris Burke say that one time? Steph can lift 1,000 pounds with one arm, or something like that. I don't know if we need to get the definition of lift. Farmer's carry. Are we doing a curl? I forget what the number. She said he could lift 100 pounds with an arm, and it was is he curling 100-pound dumbbells, or is he farmer carrying, or is it a row? 100-pound dumbbell row? I could definitely see that. Make no mistake. The man is strong, but the strongest, what does the strongest guy in your gym look like? Well, that guy looks crazy, but I'm saying, the actual strongest guy, the Hollywood strongest guy in your gym, not the jacked up muscle guy the guy that's not covered in chalk. Who's the strongest guy in gym that's not covered in chalk? And that guy might be doing a 100-pound. Even the strongest guy in the gym is probably. How big are the dumbbells? At some point you're gonna have to move to the plates and the barbells if you're really adding up that kind of mass on a row. But at some point you're tapping out at 120 in these gyms. I don't know if these super power lifter gyms. You guys got 200-pound dumbbells in these gyms that you guys can lift out. But at some point, Steph's gonna max out these dumbbells. But even again, that guy I guess he can only do a 120-pound row. But I say only. Even still, he's getting a good workout with his 120-pound dumbbell in one arm. I'm sure, Chad, that lat's firing up. I'm pretty sure. But yeah, that's much. I not to doubt the man. It's just 100-pound curl. There's some good. That's a lot of swing, I'm sure. Momentum. It's not clean form if he's curling 100-pound dumbbells. Steph, that's where the aesthetics have gone into play. Steph, yes, he's the greatest shooter of all time, the greatest three-point shooter of all time. You know, one of the great basketball players. He's clearly, whatever he's doing in the workout clearly translates. So he can take a few minutes there. When Doris Burke is in the locker room writing up an article, he's like, okay, now is the time we're training for hypertrophy. We're the 100-pound dumbbells. Just whoa. I mean, if you got a good enough swing, chat, you could definitely, I think, at least, you know, low reps. He told Doris Burke he's been working low reps on the curls. A lot of people think high reps is the way to go. You want high reps, sort of, you know, train in the hypertrophy ranges. What do we want? 15 reps? He's like, no, we're training for strength on these curls. Going 4 sets of 6, 100-pound dumbbells. So Ja Morant, unfortunately, you know, not able to close out this game. But again, what are you gonna do? Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler with a 27, 6, 4, and 3. Ooh, putting up all the stats. And this is the Grizzlies broadcast. They just have to give him credit. Thank goodness this was a Grizzlies home game, and it just defaulted to the Grizzlies broadcast. Is that the nickname for the Grizzlies broadcast? The Brizzlies? We need to look that up and just make sure that that's not something that's already in their Urban Dictionary. But the Grizzlies broadcasters, the Brizzlies. I don't know. Sounds like something, chat. But Kennard not able to hit the corner 3. The clock, it was going to run out, but they just had to foul. Down 8. I think that's on the Grizzlies, though, so yeah, it'll go back the other way. Warriors ball. Steph, can he get to 52? Maybe if they foul here, we'll see. But yes, unfortunately, Ja, like you said, not able to close that one out. It is what it is, chat. It happens against Steph Curry. Either way, R.I.P. this Suns run. Because I guess the main reason to highlight it as well, too, is because they're saying this Durant injury is like a week. But at this point, and again, they're still in the mix for the 10 seed. But what's the point of you making the playoffs? And to be honest, as much as I love the idea of what Durant and Booker can be as a team together, as much as I even still love watching them to just catch this, to see there a glimpse of it from time to time, we don't want to see this team in the playoffs, chat. And I know the Kings are the other alternative, or even, I guess, seeing them in the play-in, losing a play-in game might not be the worst case in the world, and then they're still in the lottery. It's not really affecting, again, they don't even have their draft pick this year, so not affecting that hypothetical spot that much. But at this point, just from the Durant side of things, like, why would Durant show back up and keep playing in Phoenix and risk being healthy? I mean, I guess it's a credit to him that he keeps showing up to work. You know, all these guys are not playing, and Durant, at least when he's healthy, I know he has, of course, like we're seeing here, missed stretches with injury. But when he's healthy, he has been showing up, and they've been losing, winning a couple. I mean, you know, dropped 42 in Cleveland. Probably going to end up winning that game. 38 in Milwaukee. So, I mean, these guys are still, they still play even at that level offensively at times where like they just go out and just get buckets so easily, chat. But, I mean, of course, there's more to basketball than that. The defense, the effort, the vibes, the teammates. I mean, all that stuff, chat. It is what it is. But we should be, I mean, the schedule, we'll still be on this week, chat. The schedule should be normal, but there'll be more days mixed into it because we've got the Final Four this weekend as well, too. So I know we'll be live for the championship game. We'll probably be live for the Final Four as well, too. We'll also be live Friday. We usually go live Sunday. We might be live Sunday as well. We'll just stay tuned. This weekend's going to be crazy on the REMINGTOM pod. We're going to be popping off the Final Four. I mean, it's the last weekend to really dive into college basketball like this. And then, you know, we start NBA playoffs. Draft season really heats up for the NFL as well. I mean, as well as the NBA, too. But really for the NFL especially. So that'll be fun. Just more things to get into and more fun to be had on the REMINGTOM pod here. But like I said earlier, you can follow the pod feeds, the actual podcast feeds, Spotify and Apple, of course, running the game, but any platform that those pop up on, any feed that you guys are listening to on, those should pop up. The YouTube here, of course, where we go live, or you can rewatch the videos, the clips, whatever you guys want to do there, the social feeds as well too. We're live over there at the Remington Pod. So yeah, stay tuned this weekend, and we'll be back having fun watching college basketball, watching NBA, reacting to all kinds of fun stuff. It'll be a good time. So we'll see you then, chat.